Because you've got powerful legs. How'd you get the physique? Was it gym or how'd you get the physique?
I've always been.
She's actually not got powerful legs. Do you shower in your dressing room? Do you have a shower on the day of a fight or not? Tell us about the tattoos.
Shut the fuck up, you little prick.
But then I've got the Phoenix.
Hey, prick.
So I'll take it from Bob every day of the week.
Absolute disgrace.
That's your knowing or mine.
Move him out of here, Darren.
Ricky Hatton didn't go over for his fighter because he risked getting abducted and sold into sexual
I never said that.
Both have been rape victims. I'm not watching Frank Buglioni live on a Saturday night. You're out of your mind.
Jesus Christ, get yourself a life.
He's actually a priest.
Yeah.
It's because his brother John Fury eye gouged him.
What have I told you all this time? He's going to end up sucked out, fucked out, looking for a handout.
Boxing nutters messenger group. I'm gonna be the king.
J-Pump, you know what I'm saying?
Welcome, everybody, to the 594th edition of the Boxing Asylum Nuthouse. Proud member of the Sports Social Network. You can find us 8 o'clock in the UK every Sunday evening. That'll be 12 Pacific time in the United States. Right at noon, you can have it with lunch with your fresh seafood that you caught off the pier or whatever bullshit you're doing. Maybe you live in the butthole desert around Bakersfield and you're just sad. That's possible too. Joining me today, Justin, Dez. Right now, we have an American majority. How long will that last for? I don't know. You talk about somebody who might be sad today. That would be Robson Conceição, who lost his title through split decision to Usyk Foster. Foster closing out well after Conceição did very well in the beginning rounds and a good chunk of the middle. 115, 113 all the way around, if I recall. It just happened to be that two of those went Foster's direction. I thought that Conceição was much snappier with his punches. He fought more confidently, actually. And even though I don't think this was a robbery by any stretch, Justin, I kind of think that Conceição had a better argument that he won this fight than when he lifted the title off of Foster earlier in the year.
I 100% agree. He looked like he actually fought better. Yeah, you're right. He did everything better this fight than he did the last time. It's boxing's weird. I think these guys could fight 50 times and every fight would be just like this. It would be one round in it. They're just so similar in what they do. There's, neither guy does anything incredible, and they're just pretty much the same guy. So yeah, they can do this every time they want to. The fight is still going to end up like this. So if they fought, like I said, 50 times, every fight is going to be a draw. I had it a draw. I think I had it a draw. I don't really remember. But every fight's going to be tight. And you're right, Conceição, I think in the middle, he was starting to you notice later of the fight, he started the round off strong. He started every round, he would come out just swinging, come out more aggressive, but it's hard. This is not a robbery. This is not anybody could have won this fight. I think you probably ask 100 people and you're probably going to get 50-50 on who they thought won and lost. It's just one of those fights. I don't want to see it again. I don't want to see a third because they're not really exciting fights. They're nothing that you watch them. You're like, okay, well, that was okay. I mean, you don't really want to let's just keep bringing these guys back. But then it's like, who else are they going to fight?
I don't know. This one was better than the first one. Maybe they'll keep
it was
better until the seventh one, which will be a fight of the year.
Yeah, it's okay. But I mean, I don't want to see a third one. That's just me. It's fine. I mean, it was better, but neither guy's going to knock each other out. It's going to go 12. And it's just, I don't want to. It's not boring. I wouldn't use the word boring. It just doesn't. It's nothing I want to see again. Like I said, Foster won. That's fine. I think you're right. I do agree though. Kansei Sao did a lot more in this fight than they did the last fight. He did a lot more, and then it's funny he loses. So it's just weird.
Yeah, and it's oftentimes you can see when a fight changes and it's on one shot. And Des, that was in the 10th round for Foster. He caught him clean, kind of changed it, and he was able to do the better work down the stretch, just eking out those scorecards. But this was again a close fight. You can't really argue that it goes one way or the other. I think I was like Justin. I think I had it a draw as well. Just two kind of evenly matched guys when it comes down to it.
Yeah, and a lot of what Justin said, I echo. I think if these two guys box each other 10 times, you could have five one way, five the other. I think they're two very capable operators, both very sound technicians. Neither of them can crack. Not like that. Not at that level. So they have to be very good with their hands and their feet. They have to understand subtle angles. I thought Robson was better last night than he was in the first one, but I thought Usyk Foster made more adjustments. And the version of Foster I saw last night, I think won last night and would have won the first one if he'd have turned up that way. I think Foster made the small adjustments, particularly in getting his punches off. And when he finished exchanges, he always tried to have the final say. He was a lot more proactive than I'm used to seeing Foster. Now, that might have played a part in my thinking and the way I scored the fight, but I thought he was a lot more proactive than reactive in what he normally is. I think the punch that showed that there wasn't a lot in between the two, but I think Foster just edged it. I think Foster's ability to switch, I think that kept, I'm not saying it threw Robson off, but it kept Robson having to reset and rethink. I think it was a fight of, like Justin said, I wouldn't want to see it again. I've seen this twice now and I appreciate it and I've enjoyed them both. But I think both these guys need to go in different directions now and get their trajectories on the upturn. I think there's legs in both of them. I don't think 130 is stacked with super talent. I think both these guys can play big parts in that division. I liked what I saw from Robson last night, particularly in the middle rounds. I think he started to relax, and he reminds me a little bit of Emmanuel Augustus. He was very loose and very fluid, and he was using his hands and his feet to good effect. I think it's one of them fights when both kids are in every round, and it's pretty much what you're looking for and how you score it. I had Foster just, but it's not an argument if the other fella got it, and I wouldn't have argued if it was a draw either. What I would say about Robson, he's got a brilliant long right hand. If he could just generate a bit more power in that shot, I think he'd be stopping a lot more kids with that.
It looked better than the last fight. He was way slappier with that shot there for the first time around, and he straightened it out and he was snapping it a bit better. I don't know if he's ever going to be a real puncher, but the punch was more technically sound than it was a handful of months ago.
He went to 2 Olympics, so he's had an 8-year cycle at top level, and it does take the snap out of your punches. It does take that ability to sit on your punches and go for it. I'm convinced of that. But you're right. I'm glad you picked up on that. His right hand last night he really used it to good effect, and he had a lot of meat behind it. If he could just develop that, because he's got it from somewhere, because it wasn't there in the first fight. If he could just develop that with his long arms and that athleticism he's got, that's a good shot. And he caught Foster with it an awful lot. And Foster's not the easiest guy to catch. So I think that was a big positive from Robson last night. But I'm in total agreement with my friend Justin. There's no loser here. There's no disgrace here. It was two very good technical operators at a very high level. For me, Foster was one of my fighters of the year last year. I think he come for an awful lot and proved himself to be a top kid. Robson's now living with Foster. He's got 1 win. He's got 1 loss. I'd like to see him move on. And if we're going to see this, I don't think we will, but if we're going to see it, let's see it down the line a bit more. I don't want an immediate return. We've had enough of this for now.
Well, here's one thing I'll disagree with you on. You said you didn't think that 130 was a very deep division, but here's the ring ratings. And this is until last night, notwithstanding. They don't have there's not a champion, so to speak, at this point in time. None of the unified guys. So they have going descending order from one: Navarrete, Foster, Valdez, Kakachi, Lamont Roach, Joe Cordina, who is now 135 pounds. You can take him off. Hector Luis Garcia, who'd looked good until a recent loss there. Conceição at 8. Eduardo Nunez, who's 27-1 with 27 knockouts, and he's knocking at the door. Albert Batsargayev, who is currently undefeated, is at 10. And I'm going to throw out a few other names that I know are at 130 right now. Raymond Ford just moved up to 130 pounds. He's going to be fighting this coming weekend. You have Otar Aranosian, who I've been waiting to get his chance, and as well. So so there's 12 fighters off the top of my head there, and that's Abraham Nova had a draw last night. He's always barking around. He's had close fights with a couple of guys on this list. So I think 130 pounds is a lot deeper there. Rocky Hernandez, who was beating Foster through 12 rounds before he got stopped. He's another guy there at 130 who's still barking around. And I think Mauricio Lara is looking at campaign there as well. I think 130 pounds is deeper than you gave it credit for at first glance.
Well, he should rematch Hernandez.
Let me quantify that, Matty.
Yeah.
There's talent at 130, but nothing like the talent we see at 126, and nothing like the talent we see at lightweight. So I think it's a division that is shadowed by feather and lightweight. And you
if it wasn't bookended by two of the best divisions in boxing, right?
Correct. So I think you probably, and that's all credit to you. You've kind of honed in on what I was getting at, really. I think if Raymond Ford has a successful jump up, I think there's a very good chance that Raymond Ford could dominate that division. From what I've seen, now he's not a puncher, but he's a snappy type of puncher, and he throws an awful lot of good shots. He's got very long arms. He's a very good technician. And looking at, if I'm saying that Foster and Robson last night are two of the best in that division, I think Ford lives with them too, if not beats them. So I'm not saying, let me quantify it clearly. I'm not saying 130 is weak, but bookended between the brilliant featherweight division at the moment and the brilliant lightweight division at the moment, it sits behind them.
I think what you're basically saying is 130 has a bunch of good guys, doesn't have a lot of great guys.
Correct.
And that's what separates it.
Yeah. A lot of the guys Matty said there, they were good kids, but there's no standout super talent there.
Yeah, but they're all. What's great about 130 pounds is even though they might not have some of the guys that you're saying are the pound for pound guys, all the guys that are in that top 15 kind of area that I was talking, you can kind of mix them, match them a lot of different ways and come out with a lot of different outcomes because styles make fights. It's a very evenly matched division where I think there'll be a lot of close competitive fights, even if they aren't necessarily good fights. But I think last night was far better fight than the first time, though. I hate to say it was a bad fight because I think that would be incorrect. I thought it was a little bit better.
And what I would say, picking up on what Justin said there, just to highlight the point Justin made, you're right. There's a lot of competitive fights at 130, but when you look up at, say, 35, there's not just a probably solid 5 top fighters. There's also another solid 5 coming through that are going to be top fighters. And if you look at, say, 26, they've got a solid 5, and they've probably got 2 or 3 coming up from Super Bantam. So that's the point I'm making, Matty. You're quite right to pull me on it. They're good kids, but they're not the super talent that I see one above or one underneath.
Yeah. But man, it's just good to kind of be talking strongly about that. I remember for years, junior lightweight was one of the worst divisions in boxing. But just to give you guys an idea, I was looking at BoxRec, which isn't good for everything, but it's good for some things. And the fan submitted scores on that one have Conceição by a point. So it's that goes to show you just how close that these were. And there were some rounds where people were very much close in the way they saw it. The 12th round, folks saw that one was pretty close. It looks like the 9th round was seen pretty close. So yeah, there was a lot to pick and choose from in that fight. So people who didn't see it, honestly, I say it's worth scoring it. I think it was interesting, and I think if you're you want to be in a championship level boxing, probably got to be into check that stuff out. Let's see here. Also on that card, and our good friend Ames has joined us, but unfortunately he didn't watch any of the American stuff. So, but we'll talk to him. We'll bring him in too. But also on that card, we saw a big comeback win for Raymond Murataya after looking very ordinary against Tevin Farmer. And bear with me, I forgot the name of his damn opponent here. But the Jesus Perez.
Campos, he boxed.
Yeah, so Raymond Murataya, but he just beat the crap out of Jesus Perez in a single round. And Perez usually normally a pretty durable operator. Murataya just got on him, just beat the snot out of him, found some clean punches. It was a good, confident performance. And Des, it's the kind of thing when you're knocking at the door of a title shot, it's one of those things you need to do. You need to put an exclamation point on those claims. And when you're going in against an undermatched opponent who doesn't have the tricks that a Tevin Farmer has, Murataya did what the top level guys should do.
Well, I was looking at Campos's resume coming into this fight, and he's lost 5 of his last 9. So that kind of tells you what they think of him. But interestingly enough, in his first 2 years as a pro, he boxed 21 times on the Mexican circuit. So he was very, very active, and he came over to North America, and I think he lost 2 of the 3 that he fought, and that kind of solidifies his place in the division. Murataya had to look good last night, and Campos had never been stopped, and he stopped. Like you said, he gave him a good hiding inside 2 rounds, and that puts Murataya in a real good group now, an elite group of, say, prospects at 126. Now, if you think about the prospects you've got at 126, and we might talk about a little bit later if we go into the Keyshaw fight that's happening next week, but you've got the Floyd Scofields, Andy Cruzes, Abdullah Masons, Frank Martin, Berencek. There's some very good young prospects in that division. Would you put Murataya in with that group, Matty, or would you hold him back a bit?
Well, Berencek's got that title, and I could see him, Murataya, against him in a heartbeat because Berencek has been working with Top Rank. And I think at this point you got to get him in there with him. I think if he's going to get a title, he's going to have a better chance of getting one off of Berencek than the other title holders in the division. So that's the direction I would put him at this point in time. Because
and the reason I put Berencek, sorry, Matty, to cut across you, just to clarify that, the reason I put Berencek in with that group is because I don't put him in with Tank, Shakur, Zepeda, or Loma. I mean, this is a division of supreme depth.
That'd be a damn good fight versus Berencek, though, because they have the same style. So it would be really interesting to fight them together.
Yeah, and I think that's the way Top Rank is going to take it. Ultimately, is they've got to divert these guys towards title opportunities since they're not willing to divert them towards each other. And I mean, we go through the list of Top Rank prospects at 135 pounds, but but I just think Murataya is one of those guys that's knocking at the door, and I think he's ranked the right way to make that happen. That looks the way it goes. But what did you think of his performance last night? It was short and sweet, Justin, but it's there's got to be some concerns of considering how pedestrian he looked against Farmer.
Yeah, I mean, last night he did what he was supposed to do. But you're right. The Farmer could be a one-off. It could just be a bad night. But Farmer was done a long time ago and he hadn't fought hard in like 3 years. That one, I mean, Muratai, I think I said it, I think Ames asked me. I think he kind of is what he is. He's going to get found out. He's got power, but you can just see that there's nothing special. And maybe that's just me, but it's like, I would pick Baranchik to beat him. I think Baranchik just has a little bit more to him, because I don't think Baranchik would have went decision with Farmer. And I know that's sometimes you can't look at it that way, but that's how I would look at it. Baranchik would not have went 10 or 12 with Farmer. And so
I don't know.
I don't get. I like Farmer. He's okay. He's done what he can with his ability and his bad eyesight. But I mean, you still shouldn't be at this point in his career. You shouldn't be going the distance with Tevin Farmer. I mean, that's just me.
Well, you got to mute yourself there, Justin. It's when it comes to Farmer, I still don't think he's been stopped in his career at this point in time. Let me go check. It's one of those things when you think about it, because he's been around, he was inactive for so long. You're like, why aren't you stopping him? And the odds were that he would be stopped. Let's see here. No, he has been stopped twice, but let's see here. He was stopped way early in his career, I think. His first fight, Tevin Farmer was stopped. And then Pedraza stopped him in what was respectively about each of their 10th fights between the two of them. And then he reeled off a bunch of victories in a row, and that's basically the Farmer that we've known. He lost that fight to Jojo Diaz. He had the no contest against Igawa, which I thought was a decision he won. And then he went decision with Muratai, and I think the over-under on rounds might have been like 6.5 or something like that. They did not expect him to go. But we will be getting into the preview of him against William Zepeda later on in the show. And if Zepeda stops Farmer, I think that's a statement. I just think that Muratai was exposed a bit against guys with boxing skill, and I look at Baranchik and he definitely handles the punchers fine. The way that he dealt with Navarrete and his unorthodox methods, trying to bully him and stuff like that, it didn't work for him well. So I lean like you that Baranchik could win that fight, but I think it might be one of those fights that's close and ends up pretty contentious on the cards. What would be your initial thoughts on that fight, Des? Muratai and Baranchik.
No, I think Baranchik beats him. I don't think Muratai goes into that prospect group of Scofield, Cruz, Mason, Abdullah, Frank Martin even. I don't think Muratai has been active enough, busy enough, or shown me the level of opposition to go into that group yet. I think Baranchik beats him. I would say someone like Frank Martin would be a perfect opponent for Muratai at the moment. Let's just see what Muratai's got at that next level up. But I wouldn't put him in for a world title, and I certainly won't put him against someone as rough, rugged, and as capable as Baranchik. Not just yet. I've not seen enough of Muratai to say he could beat someone like a Baranchik.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment there. Let's see here. Also on the card, let's see here. Abraham Nova had a draw with with Humberto Galindo. That fight was pretty close. I guess it could have gone either way. Nova is just having hard luck lately, though. Just can't seem to get a good W. He's gotten a hard shake on the cards. Got a draw here. Rough time. Let's see here. Bryce Mills beat Mike Ohan Jr. in what was kind of a battle of local guys more so than anything, but he looked light years ahead of Ohan Jr. So Mills might do something interesting in his career. Still at this point in time, you never know. It could be one of those guys you end up seeing take a good pro box main event and then getting a springboard. I don't know. Jahai Tucker looking pretty good against Quilesto Madera, getting a stoppage in the last round. It might have been able to go the distance on there. Damian Ganiba beat Richard Larte, stopping him. And then I'll tell you what, even though I didn't see this fight myself, Justin, I think this is worth mentioning, is that Jan Santana got a 4th round stoppage over Eduardo Baez. And Baez is a really tough guy. He's been in with some really solid fighters. He picked off 3 rounds or so, maybe 4, against against Angelo Leo earlier in the year on a pro box fight. I was pretty surprised, all in all, that this fight didn't go the distance. So I'm keeping my eye on this Jan Santana guy. Did you catch this one?
I actually did catch that. No, yeah, right. Baez is just one of those guys that you know is going to show up, and you're going. I mean, you really can't put him down. So that actually was a good win, especially for a younger guy. But so there could be something there. There could be, because guys like Baez don't go that easily. So there could be something there. So, yeah, he's definitely a guy that I'm going to. I mean, see, this is what I like about it, though. This is where he should be fighting. Guy with working his way up, winning these kind of fights. I like when you see these guys fight at 2:00 in the afternoon on a 9:00 card, because that's where they should be. And so you could be watching him. He could work his way up, but that was a good win. Good start. Now I've been thinking about this, though. Once you fight Baez and you knocked him out like that, they're going to have to crank it a little bit, because you've already kind of passed that tough gatekeeper, tough level. Now you got to go to that next level. We'll see then.
Yeah, and he's a Dominican, and they always have an interesting pathway up here. He's been just pro for about 3 years now. He's beat a few 3-0 guy, 1-0 guy, 4-0 guy. No real names until Baez had a win over a 15-4 Brandon Valdez earlier in the year. But man, just another guy in a stacked featherweight division. So we'll see what happens with them. It's going to be tough to snag a title there. That's a bit of an just 3 amateur fights. So yeah, we'll see. But yeah, 13-0 now with 12 knockouts. Jan Santana, keep an eye on that one. Connor, I haven't forgotten your super chat. We're going to get to that in a bit, my bud. Let's see here. Do you have any closing thoughts on that undercard, Des?
No, mate. I saw the top 3, so you've covered everything I saw, Matty.
Excellent. Yeah. And then let's see here. So then we also had the DAZN card last night with an interesting fight for Floyd Scofield. And as he had a tough time with Renee Tellez Giron. Giron is a pretty tough customer. I mean, he can absolutely take a punch, and he's a tremendously athletic fighter is Scofield. He's got every punch that you can imagine, but he ended up getting dropped in the 11th round. He's got just these little bit of lapses in concentration that make me worry about him a little bit. But at the end of the day, Justin, this is just such an incredibly athletically gifted fighter. I just don't know if he keeps his head in it every second of every round.
You're right. The knockdown, I think that was more of, yeah, you're right. He just lost his concentration, because all he did was just heavy bag this guy for the first almost 11 rounds. Giron can take a hell of a shot, because Scofield was just in and out, just popping his head back the whole time, and he took him. And I don't think he ever really got hurt. He just kept taking the shots. And I can see after 11 rounds, you might lose your concentration for a second, but the shot he got him with was just, I don't think it was perfectly a great shot that he just, he was kind of turning a little bit. It wasn't nothing bad, but you're right. I think they had Scofield. I keep forgetting this. He's 135, right?
Yep.
Okay, so that's why they kept having Shakur tweeting in the whole fight. The whole fight, they had Shakur Stevenson tweeting in these comments, and I figured that's what it was. Yeah, Scofield, I like him. He's got good skill. He, like you said, he's smooth. You like watching guys like that, because my favorite fighter of all time was Terry Norris, and so I like guys that are like that have that pop, but also are smooth and they can do it all. You kind of see all levels of boxing, not just the boxing part, but they kind of have a little bit of everything. But you're right. I mean, he does have the concentration thing. He is still youngish. I think it's time now that, I wouldn't say step him up. I think it's time that you got to move above the Hirons, and you got to get him in there. Let's start getting a top 5, top 10 guy, and let's just see what he's got. I don't think he beats Shakur right now. I think Shakur's just a little bit tighter on everything he does. So I think Shakur would probably win a boring decision if he did fight him. but I think he's ready to move up. Will he beat Tank? No, he's not going to beat Tank, which a lot of people. Would he beat Baranchik? God, that'd be a good fight. If he has a lapse of judgment in that one, Baranchik could knock him out. So that would be a fight where that'd be a tricky fight. That would be a good fight to watch because you can't have any breaks in what you're doing. Like Haron knocked him down, Baranchik would have knocked him out with that punch. I guess that's the difference. So that would be interesting. But I'll watch Scofield. I like him. He's fun to watch, and we'll see.
Yeah, and he was supposed to have a fight with another 135-pound prospect in Ashton Silva, but Silva went and got himself knocked out and blew that one. So, anyways, I'll tell you what. I really think that Scofield there's really no complete fighters at the end of the day. Everyone's got their things. I talked with the folks after the Crawford Spence fight. A lot of guys, industry referees, judges, people have been around, and they thought that Crawford was the most complete fighter since Hagler, but that's another conversation. But I look at a guy who's as athletically gifted as Scofield, and I wonder why they don't teach these athletic guys to do, and I know it's uncommon, but when you're that athletically gifted, your feet and your hands work so well in sync. Why does nobody teach these guys to really jab and move fleet-footedly on their back foot the way that Leonard used to do? That was the amazing thing about him. People would be chasing him down, and he would just be like moving like a deer backwards, but just snapping that jab out, pop, 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 pop. And a guy like Scofield, you're like, man, if he would add that to his arsenal, he'd be almost untouchable, and he's got all the athleticism to do it.
Yeah, and I sometimes think boxing athleticism and sport athleticism are two mutually exclusive things. So you probably won't find a better athlete than Deontay Wilder or an Anthony Yard, but I don't seem to have them boxing athleticism. It's a slightly different set of motor skills. I don't think Floyd's got that type of athleticism. I think he's an athlete. He's a very gifted athlete, but I'm not quite sure that comes natural to him. So what I've seen a lot is, particularly when a very fast-handed, fast-footed amateur goes into the pros, they do encourage you to sit down a little bit and to just take a little bit out off you. And the reference I always used, and people around me always used, was, well, they never slowed Ray Leonard down, which is true. They never did. But I think it's very difficult. I mean, you mentioned something about Crawford and Hagler and that link. I mean, that's a great conversation. And perhaps we could think of fighters that we could link to, say, an Aaron Pryor or a Ray Leonard, but they're so few and far between. And it's probably, if you've been around Scofield and many other fighters that have got a really high level of skill set and got good motor skills, you probably don't want to overcomplicate things, over confuse the fighter and make him do things he's absolutely not comfortable with, particularly at their upward trajectory. Scofield is pitching for the top. And I like the way they're bringing him along. I like the way they're matching him. And if you look at people like Scofield, Keyshawn, and Andy Cruz, and Abdullah Mason, these kids are like Formula One racing cars. They're all sitting in pole, waiting to go. And I think the way they're being matched is, last night's opponent for Scofield was typical. Knows how to win. He can punch. You're going to do really well to stop him. You're going to get loads of rounds out of him. I think that's indicative of how they're matching these guys at 135, these prospects, should I say, at 135, because they're probably the most solid group, talented group of young fighters coming through in any division. I hear what you're saying about Floyd. Why don't they introduce this? But the simple answer is maybe it just don't come natural to him. Maybe it's not something that's his first default setting. Maybe it's something that would offset him a little bit. But what they're doing with him, and it goes to Cruz and it goes to Abdullah, and I said the same about Keyshawn, they're really matching these guys well.
Yeah, it's a much deeper question at the end of the day. I think I'm wondering why that athletic back foot style isn't taught much anymore. You know, a lot of guys, like, you know, they'll do the subtle shifts backwards. Guys will work the perimeter. Guys will kind of lean back and fight out of a shell, try to hold the pocket. But nobody just really kind of like moves quickly in whatever direction they choose and picks off angles in that quick way. And I know it's a very few fighter who can pull it off, but I feel like that very athletic style has not been taught in a very long time, because there's no way that like nobody could pull it off. I'm not saying anybody has to do it like Ray Leonard did. I mean, that would be incredible, but the fact that it basically is non-existent in the last 25 years of boxing is staggering.
So, something we should mention as well, and I don't want to do either any fighters injustice, but in the 80s, people like Tommy Hearns and Ray Leonard made it fashionable to knock people out. They'd go looking for you and they knew how to finish you. But I think in the 90s and the noughties, brilliant fighters like Roy Jones, as he went up in the weights, Floyd Mayweather, when he was on his fourth or fifth weight, they made it fashionable not to knock you out. So they made counter-punch boxing box office. And we've heard it recently with Andre Ward. I'm here to look after myself and not take punishment. Well, we've never heard that in any previous generation of boxing, but now we are hearing that. So that might go some way to explaining why we're seeing a lot of kids who know how to look after themselves and avoid punishment, but still be good fighters and win fights.
Absolutely. And let's see here. I want to go through some of the rest of this card here. Let's see here. The good old event on Box Rec. Gotta love it. Let's see here. What did we see here last night? Bektimir Malakuziev, a split decision over David Stevens. These were some strange scorecards on this one. I think you had two that were like 117, 111-ish for Malakuziev, and one, I think 116, 112 for Stevens. Stevens was a tough operator. Really surprised Malakuziev. Fantastic body work in there. I think that all the judges were kind of wrong on this one. I thought it was kind of like Conceição Foster, and not in the same type of fight. This was more brutal, much harder shots thrown in this one. But I thought it was kind of a 115, 113 either way to a draw, personally, on this one. But worth your time, folks. A good banger here. Justin, what did you think of this scrap?
I agree with you. I thought it was close. I think, was it Beck the Bully, whatever he wants to call himself? He couldn't bully this guy. And this guy I didn't really think Stevens was going to put up the kind of fight he did, but he hung in there. I mean, he was there the whole time. And I think he earned himself. You know how I always say, if you don't have to win the fight if you're a lower level guy. If you just look really good, then you're going to make 2 or 3 paychecks off of that one fight. So Stevens has definitely earned himself a few more fights just because he was right there and gave it everything. But Bektimir, I think we've seen him. I think he is what he is now. I don't see him win a world title. I don't see him taking anybody out in the super middleweight. I think he just kind of is what he is, because Stevens was a good fighter, tough guy, but he's nothing special. And Beck really had to work hard. Really had to work hard to get that. So I give Stevens all the credit. I think the Bully kind of showed where he's at. I don't think he's going to get much above this. It was a good fight. Like you said, if you want to go back and watch it, people should, because you had two guys just really going at each other. I think Bektimir's face got all like beat up. If you look at faces, and you can never do that in boxing, but he looked like he was the guy that lost, because his face was bleeding. He was like, both eyes were all swollen up. I mean, he took it, but it was a good fight though.
Yeah, absolutely. This was a good one for sure. Des, I don't know. Were you able to catch this one over the weekend?
I didn't catch it, mate. But when you said some strange scorecard, there weren't none stranger than what we had over in Birmingham last night. But I'll let you come to that. But no, I never caught anything else in America last night, mate.
Hey, no worries, no worries. Yeah, so that one is definitely on the list. I think definitely worth your time on that one. Didn't see everything on this card, unfortunately. Let's see here. I did see Darius Fulgham taking a stoppage win over Christopher Pearson, who just did not have it. He's normally a sturdy enough operator, but he just did not have it. But funny enough, I know people say, you're just a little too into the women's game. For me, I thought an incredibly entertaining fight. A great stoppage. Gabriela Fundora becoming undisputed at 112 pounds, picking off the belts of Gabriela Celeste-Alanis. And she knocked her down twice in the 6th or the 7th round with 1-2. That back left hand of hers was just vicious in that round, almost doubling over Chucky Alanis to get the stoppage victory. So that one, honestly, even if you're not a fan of the women's sport, that one might be a nominee for a women's stoppage of the year. Justin, did you check out the chicken
No, that's usually when I take my breaks. I can go, use the bathroom, go get something to eat. But I did see the highlights, and you're right. It was a good knockout, but no, I did not watch the fight. I know you love chicks with digs, whatever it is. I know you love the women's fight. It's not me, but it was a good hour. It was a good 45-minute break because I can watch some other stuff. But I do agree with you though. It was a good knockout. That's what women have to have. If they started having more fights like that on a consistent basis, you would have guys like me and people that don't get into it. They would start watching more. Simple as that. They don't want to watch 10 rounds of them they don't want to see that. They want to hope that somebody might get knocked out. And women, usually it's never going to happen. So I did enjoy watching the highlights. If I see Fundora fight again, I will watch her fight. I will say that.
Yeah, Sister of Dork is a pretty damn good fighter. She claims that she can go down to 108 pounds. I would like to see her fight Yeskineri Plata at that weight, but going up at 5'9", and she's a beast. She's about as tall as Clarissa Shields, give or take. She's taller than Katie Taylor. She's lanky like her brother, but it could be interesting watching her go up the weights. Serrano has kind of set the bar in the ladies divisions as far as that.
Hey, speaking of Clarissa Shields, she did post that she is looking for a man and she's looking to get pregnant. So we're just throwing that out there. If anybody wants to, you can hit her up on Twitter, Instagram. It's out there.
Well, it's a shame it didn't work out with her husband, but there you go. Sonny Edwards, there's your chance. You know that he would jump at the opportunity. And actually, Sonny would probably have to literally jump at the opportunity just to make it physically happen as far as it goes. But we're pulling for Sonny in all of his flyweight glory. Was there anything else on that undercard that you care to mention that you enjoyed? Anyone that you're high on after last night there, Justin?
No, I just watched the ones that come on. I didn't really watch the undercard earlier. I just watched the ones everybody else watched.
All right. So, moving on. I guess it was controversy in the UK. I was watching it on my phone. I had company over. I was eating dinner, and I was doing my best to pay attention. But I sure saw a wide victory for Shabazz Massud and quite the upset over Liam Davies, who apparently is done at the weight. Going to move on up. Des, what were your thoughts on this fight? I saw just a hell of a good countering southpaw. A lot of Jack Catterall in that kid, in these back-to-back weeks.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of southpaws over the last couple of weeks, haven't we? We spoke about them a lot on this show. I'm going to be very careful. I don't want to talk more about the loser than the winner, and I don't want to make it all about Liam Davies. But coming in, Liam Davies was the favourite, the big favourite, 16-0. Stopped his last three, former European champion, British champion. And this is the guy, excuse me, Matty, this is the guy that we thought was going to have some sort of impact up the top end at Super Bantam. He got it monumentally wrong last night. And I'm going to talk a lot about Shabazz, but I don't think Shabazz put in a masterful performance. I don't think Shabazz was brilliant, but Liam definitely played into Shabazz's hands. And What I mean by that is Shabazz was your typical southpaw, back touching the ropes, him sitting on his back leg with his backhand perched. Now, these southpaws and a lot of these counter punchers, they've got this imaginary circle around their feet. And when the opponent comes into it, they touch him with that backhand, they spin off and they reset. If they can't spin off, they tie you up, let the referee break, and they go again. But it's pretty much one or two moves there. It's a two-step. They sit back, wait for you to come in, and they touch you. And the way you offset a southpaw with that mindset is you can't do things in straight lines. You've got to show angles and you've got to show feints. And I was expecting after round 2 or 3, Liam to discover that this is textbook Shabazz Massud, and I'm going to have to change it up a little bit. But he never did. He never tried to feint Shabazz. And by feinting him, he'd have drawn that backhand out. And when that backhand's out, Liam could have stepped to the side and come over the top and kept winning rounds. Perhaps this isn't a fight Liam was ever going to stop Shabazz in. Shabazz knew how to look after himself, and there was too much distance between the two, and the styles didn't gel for that type of fight. But I think Liam fell in love with his power. I think Liam probably went into this fight thinking Shabazz is a level or two below where I'm at, and he got really monumentally caught out badly last night. He was one-paced. He had an inability to change, done everything in straight lines, and was very predictable. Shabazz, who was the winner, and he's now the new IBO world champion, he came onto another promoter's show because he's a matchroom fighter, boxing on a Queensbury show against the Queensbury kid. And he had a good plan. He boxed brilliantly to orders, had a very good corner. It was very calm in there last night. He had the crowd behind him. A really good win for Shabazz. Like, that's probably it's going to be one of his career highlights. And he look back on that and think, what an amazing night and what an amazing performance that was. All credit to the kid. But I think ultimately, as a boxing fan, Shabazz boxed to orders and did what he had to do. But Liam made it very, very easy for him last night. And I think Liam will kick himself. That was one that he shouldn't have lost. Not like that. And I think I'm agreeing with Terry O'Connor. I think I gave Liam about 3 or 4 rounds, no more than that. But it went to a split decision, which should go to an investigation, because there's no way any judge could score that for Liam Davies last night. But congratulations to Shabazz. He moves on. I'm not quite sure what Liam does. Does he jump up to feather? I don't know. I mean, 6 months ago, we was talking about him as the next big thing to come out of this country at Super Bantam. And if Inoue moves on, he could potentially fill a hole at Super Bantam and pick up some of the souls Inoue's already taken. But it's back to the drawing board for Liam. He'll have a Christmas and have to think about what he's going to do. But congratulations to Shabazz. He done very well last night.
Yeah, it was just a sound boxing performance, landing sharp counters. But it's just it's very basic kind of stuff at the end of the day, Justin. But sometimes that does enough when guys don't know how to set up their shots and they don't know how to cut off the ring. It's just I don't feel like Massud will ultimately compete at the world level, but he had just enough to exploit every little problem that Davies had in his arsenal.
Hey, is my sound better?
Yeah, your sound was good. I was just getting echo off of me to use.
We're good.
Yeah.
It might have been my brother doing something in the background too. But Dez summed it up. It was not a close fight. It was you don't use the word boring, but it was just like Davies could not change anything, and he didn't know how, or his corner didn't know how, or he was just confused. But Massud didn't do anything special. He just does what he does. He just outboxed him, did what he wanted to do. Davies didn't put a ton of pressure on him, didn't move his head, didn't really jab his way in. Davies looked like a guy that looked so basic. And I mean, I don't want to, you want to give Massud all the credit, but you've got to say it that Davies looked just a one-dimensional guy who didn't have an answer, who didn't have options just to go right at him. He didn't even do that well. And Massud, where he goes from here, he's not gonna. I mean, I don't see world titles, but this is a big win. He's going to get paydays off of this. That's all. I mean, really, in the end, this is your job, so you really are looking for paydays. Davies, I don't know where he goes. He's got to kind of. You wouldn't say he's got to start from scratch, but he gets knocked down a level now. He's got to kind of go back and come back up again. And so it was just, it's not what I expected. I thought Davies maybe not knock him out, but I thought he would look better and that he would wear Massud down. But Massud, I mean, really wasn't breathing that hard. He really wasn't overly having to really exert himself at times. It was just simple. His left hand, right? I mean, everything he threw was it was just disappointing if you're a Davies fan. I don't think they expected that.
Ultimately, like what it comes down to is a lot of guys, and I mean we've been over it before. Like, Teofimo Lopez probably being the most well known of the bunch anymore. But there's just some guys, they look $1 million if you're going to swing with them in center ring, or if you're going to come to them. But there's some guys when you move away from them, you make them look absolutely pedestrian, and they just. They can't handle it whatsoever, and it's a shame. Like it shows you how somebody's missing the very basics, because when somebody's moving back the way that a guy like Davies is, you have to try to just cover around a little bit more ground with your feet. And this is the time when you use the devil jab, try to get them to lose their shape going backwards. But even that simple task, Davies couldn't figure it out. So it's you worry when people don't have those basics and the concept of when to do something as specific and as meaningful as doubling the jab.
And we've seen a lot of southpaws, haven't we, Matty, last sort of couple of months, and you have to create something. You have to draw them out. You have to feint, and you hope that little feint, that little bounce, that little step, it draws out that backhand. And when that backhand's out, it's got nothing to hit, and that's when you come over the top. And fighters like Liam Davies, prime example. And there is an argument to be had that he fell in love with his run of form. He stopped his last three at good level. He's coasted through British, European level. He's now sort of got a version of a world title on him. And we're all talking him up. And I think he fell in love with that last night. I think he fell in love with his power. I think he fell in love with his streak. And I think he never stopped and his team never stopped. It's hard sometimes to imagine that at such a level they're at, that no one stopped and said, right, you've got to draw Massud out now. You can't keep walking in straight lines. You can't keep going into that imaginary circle I spoke about. And he never changed. He just kept going in straight lines, no head movement, working behind a single jab, and it made it very, very easy for Massud last night. I go back to it. I think when both kids look back on their careers, I think Shabazz will look back on last night. I think that was a career highlight, and I think Liam Davies will look back and think that's one I'm really disappointed with.
Absolutely. And you never know. They might run it back. I think the lack of power for Massud catches him at the higher levels. But Ames back with us again now that we're talking about the British action, things that he's seen. I do think that there's a ceiling on both fighters. Could you see a rematch of this in the future, even though we all know it shouldn't have been a split decision?
Speaking of being in shape, Ames is here. Being out of shape as I am. How are you doing, everyone? You all good?
Doing good. Have you been hitting? You've been hitting the chip shop too much, Ames?
The chip shop, mate. I'm a connoisseur of food. I don't go to the chip shop.
Sorry. Tommy gave me a bad idea of what British people eat.
Also, they're called chippies.
Sorry, I didn't want to sound like I was, a homosexual or anything.
What? I don't know. Those are the views of Matty DiGiornado.
Chip sounds manly. Chippy sounds fruity. I'm sorry.
Those are the views of Matty DiGiornado.
The British people are the ones who call me that. I just used to be Matt or DG, and now the British people's called me Matty, and here we are, stuck with it forever and ever.
Anyway, on your own time, Matty, back to the boxing. The boxing rematch, possibly, but not immediately. I reckon down the line. There was a lot of rivalry between the two of them, notwithstanding, of course, their amateur fights that they had, but also the rivalry between Liam and some of Shabazz's fans as well too, which Liam had to deal with, a little bit unsavory, and knowing Shabazz, that won't have come from him, but the kind of idea I think would have been from Shabazz's fan to try and get into Liam's head and get him to fight on emotion. And Liam, to be fair, he's used fighting on emotion well in his fights previous. That's kind of what gets him up. That's what gets him motivated. That's what gets him going. In terms of the actual fight, I genuinely thought it was the same Liam Davies, and it was a better, more reflected version of what Shabazz Massud can do on the night. He's kind of not been at his best in a couple of fights before, and maybe learn a few lessons in his previous fights. But he executed his game plan brilliantly on the night, and it was just a flawless performance. I was going to go as far as to say a masterclass, but I think you have to reserve that for the level. Of course, you have to reserve that to. You can't call it that because Liam never adapted. There wasn't a change of plan in the corner after 4 or 5 rounds where there should have been, and Liam kind of just did the same thing and hoped that he would get to Shabazz after the 7th, 8th, 9th round when Shabazz would start tiring, and that was a bit of a shame to kind of see that there wasn't anything more from Liam there. But yeah, I remember I watched Shabazz's debut fight, and I was there actually in person against Talavera. It's one of my first shows on the Warrington to Coost Undercard. In fact, it was my first show that I did in boxing, and I remember thinking like, this guy's going to be the goods. He's a good fighter. This guy could get to the top here. And he's from. I studied in Stoke, so he's from kind of a region that it's got a place in my heart as well. And I've kind of kept track of his career, and it's probably not going to be a popular thing to say here and amongst the hardcores, but I interviewed Shabazz afterwards. I think I said this in the interview afterwards to him. I think a lot of credit has got to be given to him and the team that he's been with, the coaches that he's been with, and that's Ben Davison and that team, because he was a fighter going into the pro game who had the flashy sort of style, get in, get out, relying on those fast twitches, the reflexes, that sort of thing. And when he went to Ben Davison, a lot of that kind of it wasn't completely taken away, but a lot of that was grounded out of him in favor of kind of holding his feet a bit more, but still using a lot of the angles. And I kind of thought, well, might that have been a bit of a misstep to not kind of do what Shabazz was natural in doing? But I think he's come a long way, and Ben's added a lot to his game here and made him a much more complete fighter in his division. It's a shame that he can't crack, to be fair, because if he could crack as well too, then because he hit Liam clean, but I don't think he ever really had him hurt. He does enough to kind of keep an opponent off of him, but not enough to really kind of hurt him. But yeah, this, just going back to my point, yeah, a lot for me was kind of riding on Ben and his methods here, because there's an old saying, and I know Johnny kind of gets a lot of stick, Johnny Nelson that is, but he came out one of the post-fight interviews, Des might be able to remind me which one it was, but he said, I am a product of the gym, I am the gym, and Shabazz is the longest serving member of the Ben Davison gym alongside Lee Wood, but I think Lee Wood was after. So this really is shown with the job that Ben Davison can do, and his kind of where his coaching ability is at, where he can kind of get Shabazz to. It's his long-term project. It's his first project, and I think Ben's got to get a lot of credit here for the work that he's done with Shabazz alongside Shabazz himself. But yeah, you're saying these are two fighters that have a ceiling. I think Shabazz and Liam are capable of winning a world title. I think first of all for Liam, just to focus on him a little bit, he's gone the proper route and he's passed at every juncture that he's been on, and I just think it was a style that beat him on the line, alongside of course not being able to adapt there, but there aren't too many that have that sort of style. And when it's in terms of a fight, when it comes to a fight, for sure with a bit of boxing mixed in, but when it comes to a fight, I'd still back Liam to beat or be competitive in a lot of fights, and on his night maybe get the victory and capture a world title. I don't think that's out of the realms of possibility. The same with Shabazz as well too. Of course, he was the victor on the night, but his style there is going to be kryptonite for a lot of fighters as well. And I think both of these can pick up a world title in the future, maybe rematch as well. Future's bright for both of them. Just the future is a little bit brighter for Shabazz as of last night, and the respect was there for both of them as well too. I spoke to Liam as well. Didn't want to hide away, didn't want to shy away. Probably would have done a few more interviews as well, but for it being late in the night. But he spoke to me a little bit, and he offered no excuses in the fight week. And in the launch press conference, he kind of made no bones about this being possibly his last fight at the weight and looking to move up. He also made no bones about like, look, I'm gunning for anyway, but I know I'm in a major underdog if I ever get to fight anyway. No kind of braggadocious brashness about him about how he's going to knock out Inoue or whatever. Whenever I spoke to him, but yeah, he offered up no excuses, and maybe and just said he will be back, and maybe in the future it might be at a higher weight. But yeah, a good fighter in both of them. Looking forward to hopefully see both of them back out in the ring soon. I did worry actually, like from my point of view, I think you had to have favoured Liam in the fight beforehand, and just looking at them both at the scales, and I'm no expert in this sort of thing, but just on the Friday on the weigh-in, I looked at Shabazz and I thought like he looked pretty bad on the way when he did the weigh-in. Eyes sunken in, just really kind of, and he's had problems with the weight in the past, and he had to pull out of fights because of making the weight. So I just wondered, might that have been a factor? But it was just so good on the night. It was really a real proper coming out party for Shabazz, and he got to stick it a little bit. And it wouldn't have been part of what his motivations by any means, but he got to stick it a little bit as well from a promoter that let him go. And I was with Eddie, and he's 1-1 for Eddie as well too. So you got that in the background as well to add to the mix. But yeah, brilliant performance from Shabazz Massud, onwards and upwards.
I don't know about that world level. We'll see on that. We'll see. Davies is supposed to move up to 126 pounds. I thought was what I had heard after this. But I'll tell you what, Massud was a really big underdog going into this, Des, but I didn't know that he had already beaten Davies in the amateurs a couple of times. And I'm trying to think of times where that has specifically bit me in the ass before where I haven't looked at that. And I didn't bet this particular fight, but I kind of feel like folks were ignoring that fact.
Yeah, but you can see with Massud's style, can't you? I know it's been adapted a little bit, and he's been slowed down a little bit by Ben Davison, who's done a brilliant job with him. And I echo what Ames said there about the link. This is a product of Ben Davison and the gym he operates out of. Massud has done really well, but I don't think you could look at Liam Davies and the fighter he's become, and knowing this fight was over 12, and think that anything Massud's done in the amateurs should have a bearing or impact here. Maybe psychologically, but practically, physically, it shouldn't have done. I think last night, it's very difficult not to talk too much about Liam Davies, because but we was really hot on him. And I really thought he was going to have an impact in the top 5, maybe even top 3 at Super Bantam. And we shouldn't downplay what Massud did last night. But I have to say that Liam Davies was really, really bad. You know, he was predictable, done everything in straight lines, didn't move his head, didn't throw the double jab, didn't throw any feints, didn't do any angles. Like, you're going in against a southpaw, one single punch counter puncher. Like, in his last fight, Liam Davies sat on the ring apron and said something along the lines, this is not verbatim, but something along the lines, I'm just a kid from a council estate loving this boxing thing. And I came on the pod and I said, he has to change that, because this is a kid now, Liam Davies I'm talking about, that can actually do something in boxing. He can actually go and have himself a career and needs to take it seriously. And I just felt that what we saw last night, and I don't want to undo a lot of the work, a lot of the things Ames said, because Ames is bang right. We should be celebrating Massud as well. But I just think Liam was amateur. He fell in love with a run he's been on. He thought Massud would be perhaps a level or two beneath him, and they didn't have a plan A that worked, and they didn't have a plan B to go to. And the last thing I'll say, and it has to be said, both corners were very good last night. Davies's corner was very straight with him in the championship rounds, and even to the last round where they said, "No, you need to stop this kid, Liam." And Ben Davison and his team in that corner were excellent. They knew their kid. The kid boxed to brilliant instructions. They didn't overload him with information. They didn't have to. But it was a very well-run corner last night by Ben Davison. Very noticeable.
Yeah, I think as much crap as we've given him in former incarnations of the podcast, Davison is developing as a trainer, and he's getting better and better. And yeah, I mean, and good for him. You put the time in, you become better. Justin, let's get one last American perspective on this one. I disagreed that either of these guys has world title talent, even without an Inoue in the division. What do you think?
I think I said it earlier. I don't see it. Could it happen? I think Massud has the better chance just because his style can catch the guy on the right night. Because if you're just not prepared for that, I think he has the best shot. I don't see it. But we've seen nowadays, if you've got a good promoter, he can work you in to a title shot where you could easily beat a guy. And like you can just kind of, I wouldn't say luck. Nobody luckily grabs a belt. You know what I'm saying? Like it just everything fell your way. Davies, I don't ever see it. I mean, I'm not trying to be hateful. I just don't ever see Davies winning a world title. But Massud, with his style, could get one. He could catch the right guy.
Yeah, Massud, I wonder if he'll have that moment like Catterall had against Prograis, where he realized if he just steps into it, he can pop a little bit, and he might be able to get put somebody down. And hell, he might be able to still score a few knockouts. It's that same kind of style, and it is as soon as you realize you don't have to keep moving back and you can step in a little bit with that shot, it changes the game.
The thing though, Matty, is, and the reason why I think Liam can win the world title is like looking up at featherweight and the champions that hold belts it. All these champions that hold belts in the featherweight division, it's a fight. It's not a boxing match. You're not in with a slickster. You're in for a fight. And I think on a night, Liam Davies can win a fight. He has to just dog out. He has to just dog out and try and outdog the other person, outgun the other person. And he's got that. He's got heart and determination in abundance. It's not a tactical fight that he'll be in if he ever gets to that point. That's why I don't think you can rule out Liam Davies in a.
I will say that even though he's competing as super bantamweight, if you go up a division, he does basically have the exact style that I say would give Nick Ball fucking fits.
There you go.
So, but I think that lack of power ultimately catches up to him late in these fights. 126 is filled with killers. You take Inoue out of the equation at 122, that'll be interesting, but everyone's kind of on hold until that happens, and they're getting their shots one by one. I think Goodman is getting his shot in December, and there's talks about Nakatani for Inoue next year. So I don't know. There's less killers at 122. It just happens to be that you got the guy with the biggest body count is at 122 right now, and you're waiting for him to go to 126.
The big fight you want to see from a British perspective when it comes to Shabazz Massud at that weight now is him and Dennis McCann. When Shabazz signed to Queensberry originally, I think McCann might have signed around the same time as well. And they're sort of doing both joint interviews, and it was respectful, but it was also kind of as a little bit of a marker on the timeline and saying that these two in the future could end up being opponents. And they're both heading towards and racing towards that world level now. Like you're saying with Inoue, we don't know what his situation is and where he might be in the next 6, 12, 18 months. But yeah, that, I think for Shabazz Massud, like pitching him against McCann would be a great fight. But again, like you wouldn't say Shabazz has a good chance against a Casemiro or a Tapales. Like he's got the style for it. I think he's well capable of winning a world title himself as well too.
But Ames, 6 months ago, we was all talking about Dennis McCann not quite being ready for Liam Davies. We was really high on Liam Davies, and I really respect Justin and Matty's knowledge of British boxing, but to kind of give you a gauge, a lot of people in America are high on Gerald Anderson. And if you can put the Charles Martin performance to one side, after Martin Bacoli, people had to have a real big rethink on Gerald Anderson. It's a similar type of thing over here. There was an awful lot of people in this country high on Liam Davies. And after last night, myself included, we are thinking, right, maybe we've got to put the brakes on ourselves. Maybe he's not quite as good as Shabazz was last night, Ames. Liam Davies should have figured that out last night. That wasn't an overcomplicated style to get round. He wasn't a boxer tricks. It was pretty much 101 southpaw counterpuncher. Liam Davies and his team should have known that and should have dealt with it a little bit better. So I think there's a lot of people now putting the handbrake on Liam Davies a little bit and let's see him. And that's not to stop Shabazz moving on. And I think Shabazz and Dennis McCann, it's a great fight. It's like snakes and ladders, this boxing game. Shabazz has now leapfrogged to Liam Davies. And let's talk about Shabazz and let's give him his flowers. But I think a lot of people are surprised about last night. And there'll be a lot of people having a rethink over Liam Davies on the back of last night.
Oh, fair enough. Matty, have you spoke about the scorecards yet?
We mentioned that they shouldn't have been what they were. What was a 116, 112, 115, 113 for Massud, and then a 115, 113 for Davies.
Terrible. And that 115, 113 for Shabazz Massud is terrible as well. That can't be overlooked as well in this. That's a real bad scorecard too.
What do you think? It was like a 9-3 more.
Yeah,
more
it was. It was Shabazz was winning.
It was that. Yeah, it was 9-3. Like the cards were bad. They need investigating.
We find ourselves saying that a lot of the time. Let's see here. So yeah, that was all. I kind of enjoyed catching that one. Just watched a little bit what I could on the phone, but that was all right. I also caught some of the Chantel Cameron Patricia Bergolt fight. Cameron just obviously the bigger puncher, kind of beat her up down the stretch. 3-minute rounds. I don't know if that fight makes it the distance. And then I didn't catch anything else, but I hear Echo Esserman against Ben Vaughn was a worthy watch. Is that correct? What I have heard on that one there, Des?
Yeah, it was a brilliant fight.
Isn't that two good fights Esserman has been in this year? Then
he's never in bad fights. Echo's beaten some brilliant domestic names. Let's put that in context. Echo's the guy that's beaten Jenkins and Antwi and Ball and Nurse and Tetley and Congo and Cooper. Echo Esserman is a very, very capable domestic operator. And I did wonder why the people behind Ben Vaughn, with Ben Vaughn not being a puncher and only having 10 fights, would put him in with Echo. It's a hard one. Like Echo, if I'm going to give you some words about Echo Esserman that describe him, persistent, constant, and consistent. And if you throw into that pot, he's undeterred, he's tough, and he's rough. That's pretty much what you're getting. He's Dennis Andrews without the punch. He's Clinton Woods without the pop. He's that guy. He's old school. And I'm not quite sure that was a good bit of matchmaking from the people behind Ben Vaughn, but Echo was solid. He was tough. He answers. He finishes every exchange with a punch. He's very cute on the inside as well because that's where he's comfortable, and he just seems to slow it down. So he always seems to have to punch between in the spots and between the gaps. Echo's a really good fighter, and he's definitely one of the best we've got at domestic level at 147. I'd love to see Echo fight for a European title. I'm not quite sure if he wins it because he'd have to go abroad, and Molino, the European champion, is a very capable operator as well, and he might have a style that could probably switch Echo off. But domestically, Echo's a really exciting fighter with some really noticeable domestic wins. And I think most British boxing fans would say that Echo is one of their favourite guys because you know what you're going to get from him, mate.
Yeah, I've always enjoyed watching his performances. The one loss he had, I think that was just a few fights ago. It just kind of looked like he was just a little bit dead, like he had a bad camp in that one, but didn't have the
It's
zip on his
interesting.
shots.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because I think perhaps maybe the people behind Ben Vaughan looked at the Harry Scarf loss and thought, Echo's one of them guys. He's a bit like Peter Obo, if anyone remembers Peter. If you looked at him on the bag, you wouldn't think much of him. If you looked at him on the pads, he looked a bit ungainly. If you looked at him in sparring, you think people could box his head off. But once you get in there with him, you realise I'm in the eye of the storm here. This guy's relentless. He's persistent. He just doesn't stop. And maybe people behind Ben Vaughan thought, well, we'll do what Harry Scarf did. And perhaps we've got a bit more talent, or we've got a higher set of motor skills, and we'll get round it and it'll be a great win. But no, they got that one well wrong last night. Good fight. Ben was brave, but Echo Esserman is a serious fighter to throw in a 10-0 kid with.
Did you think the even card was a fair view of the fight?
No, I didn't. But I
Okay.
can see how. So I can see how Echo could get jobbed on a night as well, because he's not a puncher, and he's got that very steady rhythm of consistency, and he'll break you down. And if you don't quite know what you're looking for, or if look, nothing surprising me at the moment with British judging, nothing at all. But I can see why Echo would get jobs. But I watched Echo Esserman pretty much most of his career. He knows how to break fighters down. No, do I think Ben Vaughan won last night? No, he shouldn't have won any of the cards. It wasn't loads in it, maybe 2 or 3 rounds. But yeah, I'm not, nothing surprised me when it comes to British judging at the moment, Matty.
Yeah, well, Captain Casual, as you'll often see him in the Pro Box chats making clever comments, says gives kicked us in $9.99 in super chat saying, keeping the boxing asylum flame burning brightly, chaps. We donation to Matty to join the Inferno Twig Coven and wean himself off the pay-per-view and app addiction after today's Queensbury announcement. And we'll get to that for a little bit. Queensbury is moving to Matchroom Queensbury is moving to DAZN in April, opening up the door for even more co-promotion with Matchroom. But we'll definitely get to that. But Justin, it sounds like you enjoyed this fight as well. This was a worthy time of an American's afternoon.
You can say that. Yeah, it was a good fight. Vaughn was tough. I thought he was going to get stopped in like round 6 or 7. He got really hurt. I mean, I wouldn't say hurt, but he was just really tough. Neither guy really could punch. And sometimes those make the better fights when neither guy can really punch, because they're just going to be sitting there just knocking the crap out of each other for a while. But I thought it was entertaining. I've seen Esserman fight a few times. I think Des summed him up pretty good. Vaughn, maybe this is one of those fights for him that you feel like he took so many shots and basically had to just gut it out the whole time. We might not see much of him anymore, especially being like just 10 fights in to take a fight like this and just to take as much as he did. He'll have to look himself in the mirror and see if he wants to keep where he wants to keep this at. Because earlier in your career to go out there and just blood coming out and just getting walloped a lot of times. I mean, we'll see where he stands. But like I said, I agree. I don't think the fight was close. I think Vaughn was just tough. And if he hadn't have been so tough, Esserman might have stopped him. But Esserman can't punch that well either. But Vaughn, as many shots as he took, he's just a huge knockout waiting to happen. And the way his style is, he's going to get just completely obliterated by somebody who can really bang, because he just has that style and he can't punch back. So it's like I would lean towards he might really want to think about where he stands in the whole the boxing career, but I mean, that's up to him. I don't choose for anybody, but I think you all agree with me. We've watched boxing long enough. You can kind of see where a guy's going and kind of where he's going to be, and he might want to think about it a little bit.
You know what I say to that, Justin? And it's a great point. I didn't like seeing. There's times in that fight when I thought it was a little bit uncomfortable because I knew Vaughan was very inexperienced and he was in there with a very, very solid operator. Going in at 10-0 was really chucking a kid in at the deep end. But when you look at Echo and the guys he's beaten, like your Chris Congos and your Chris Jenkins and your Tetleys and your Tyro Nurses and your Antwis and your Bulls and your Coopers, you think Echo's looking at people now like maybe even a Crocker or a Donovan or a McKinson. I wouldn't put Danny Vaughan in with a guy that Echo Esserman's beaten. I think Danny Vaughan's probably 2 or 3 levels below Echo. So it was a surprise for me that they made that match. But I can only assume that they looked at a Harry Scarf performance and thought we can do the same and we can maybe leapfrog or be fast tracked. But even if you've got past Echo Esserman, 147 domestically is a strong division over here, Justin. So once you're there, where do you go? I just think it was all round bad matchmaking. And
Yeah, because it wasn't like he was like, I have to take this fight because I'm getting this massive
Nah,
payday, or like I have to step up. He just took it because you're right. His team definitely saw something that they could exploit, and they just got it all wrong. They got it all wrong.
But let's just say Vaughan got past Echo for whatever reason. Then what do? You're stuck at this level you don't really belong at because it's like I say, 47's quite strong domestically, always has been. So I just think, I mean, look, Ames, was you there last night, Ames?
I was there, yeah.
How did you score it, mate? How did you see it?
So because we're working and going back and forth, I come in the third round and it was just kind of shots going everywhere. I didn't really score it. I just sat and watched it, to be honest with you.
No, fair enough. Because there was one of the guys had Ben Vaughan one of the judges had Ben Vaughan during the fight. But I'm with like it's interesting to hear Justin's view because Justin's sort of over in America and he's got a much broader, no agenda opinion of this. But even he saw, someone's got no attachment to either kid. The kid's in way over his head, and it's just bad matchmaking.
Well, and it sucks when they do it with a young fighter because they can completely ruin them. And I you kind of got to judge that based on each guy. Nobody should have held Lomachenko back after only a couple of fights, etc., etc. But anyhow, I guess
before you move on, Matt. Same for Ben, also boxing out of the BCB gym as well too. Off of the back of this, Frank Warren took a liking to Ben Vaughan. I think because of his background as well. I think he was an ex-army paratrooper, I believe, as well too.
That's cool.
Frank found him to have shown a lot of heart, as we all did. A lot of heart, a lot of determination in the fight, a lot of kind of balls in the ring there. And he said he's going to give him another opportunity as well too to kind of show himself. So that's maybe why, like, even in defeat, you get another opportunity and you move yourself out of the mix of the small horse shows and onto Undercard, and you get yourself your foot in the door himself for another big opportunity. So I think there's a silver lining there for Ben, even though he didn't get the victory.
All right. And let's see here. Like I said, I didn't see anything else, so I'm going to let you guys kind of round table the rest of the undercard. Let's see here. What else do we have on that one? We had Ezra Taylor stopping Kristaps Bulamastars. Ethan James decision over Jermaine Osborne Edwards. Lewis Williams with a stoppage over Lamar Griggs. Bradley Thompson with a points win over Sean Jackson. Agan Lavin, I'm sure I'm saying that wrong. My apologies. With stoppage over Remy Scholar and
wait, one more time.
Agan.
And again.
Agan.
Owen.
Oh, really? I can see that. Okay, I can see that. That's not like the Q and Calhoun confusing me. I can see that. Owen. Okay. With a stoppage over Remy Scholar, and then looks like Michael Ahmed with the points victory over Yin Calcedo. Yeah, any thoughts on that undercard? Feel free to roundtable it.
I can't say
Ames,
too.
Ames, was there anything I know that you? I mean, did you see Chantel Cameron last night? Ames?
I didn't, again, hopping back and forth and getting content and things. I didn't see too much. Actually, the most I saw was Ethan James versus Jermaine Osborne, Edwards. Not too much to say in that, and that it was a straightforward victory for Ethan James. He needed that off of his defeat. I just thought of a name, actually, by the way, just on my previous point for Ben Vaughan. Ben Vaughan can go back and fight Owen Cooper, who got beat by Echo Esserman. The fight I want to see for Echo Esserman next is David Avanesian. That's what I see for Echo Esserman.
Little levels check.
Yeah, well, it's a good fight. 2 full camps. Echo Esserman's at European level. That's the sort of, and he wants to go on to world level. I think Avanesian's the right opponent for him. I didn't see Chantel Cameron. I expected her to get the victory, and she did get the victory. And it seemed to be a pretty conventional win for her. I think she's just kind of she's really in a holding pattern until she gets an opportunity for the belts. It's no secret who she wants, and the prime on the list is Katie Taylor.
Oh, and I wouldn't be shocked if Katie retires after the Serrano fight, win or lose.
Yeah. I mean, whether she'd want to retire over in America and maybe do that retirement fight back over in Ireland, because I do feel Katie Taylor is a fighter who's deserving of a homecoming. I don't think it's the big 90,000 Croke Park homecoming that's been banded about, but something a little bit smaller, something in the region of an arena, as opposed to like the Dublin Arena, which is a hosts a good crowd and a crazy atmosphere. I love to see the Irish fans kind of come out for a big fight, and Chantel Cameron fits the bill when it comes to that opponent in the opposite corner. So,
hold on, if you're doing a homecoming, most likely retirement fight, are you going to risk another defeat to Chantel Cameron in that?
I don't think from Katie's perspective, she's beat her, and she did beat her.
She has. She's 1-1 against her.
Yeah,
it's a big risk. I know Katie never backs down from a challenge, but man, that would be I'd hate to go out on an L, because I thought that she won the rematch by the skin of her teeth in it, honestly.
Yeah, it was a close fight. It was for sure a close fight, and there was that knockdown as well too, wasn't there? That wasn't called, which on another night other ref maybe might have called it. But knowing Katie and her wanting to take the challenge, I don't think she'd fear the loss if it was to be her last fight.
Yeah. Anyone, any other thoughts on the undercard? All right. Well, wasn't that simple enough? Did any of you guys catch the card on Friday? That was let's see here. Where was I looking at there? I believe this one was from it was in your side of the world, from Belfast, Northern Ireland, with Patrick McCrory getting a wide victory on the single card of the referee, 98-91 over Leonard Carrillo. But I hear that doesn't tell the tale. I didn't see the fight myself. Anyone catch it? Man, Pro Box
didn't watch it.
Pro Box and their foray into Northern Ireland, not even getting any love. And well, I normally watch Pro Box. I can only blame myself for that one. So let's see here. I do think that there is a Pro Box event coming up here. I do want to touch on a question, though, that we got from a super chat. Connor, I did not forget about you. Hope you're still around, buddy. If not, obviously on the replay, just wanted to make sure this went in its own spot so we got attention. He asks, has Fury sacked off his dad and Lowe and the Yes Men? Ames, you're as good a man to ask as any.
It was curious as to John Fury's absence at the launch press conference for the rematch against Alexander Usyk. And with the signals and the statements being made about the corner in the fallout from the first fight, then afterwards Fury sticking with the corner, and we're led to believe that Sugar Hill Stewart, Andy Lee, and John Fury will be that corner and still be in that corner. It was curious to see that Andy Lee was there, Sugar Hill Stewart was there, but John Fury wasn't there. Now, Tommy wasn't there either, nor was Paris, so there was a few missing. Shane Fury was still there, but when John's absent, you know John's absent. When John's there, you know John's there. So it was I don't think it's quite a reflection of what will happen on the night. I think John will be there. And in fact, I think Andy's said on an interview with Boxing Scene, he said there will be one voice in the corner and it will be Sugar Hill Stewards. So maybe behind the scenes, I've had that conversation and said, Sugar's the lead. We're going to offer our contributions, but we'll be offering our contributions in a much more controlled and agreed upon way so that we can get our instructions to you in as succinct and as well executed as a possible manner for such a high pressure fight. So no, I think John's going to be there. Isaac's there. Isaac's there on the undercard. You've got the same team as well too. I think I can't remember the name of the nutritionist who stated beforehand that he was one of the main reasons as to why Usyk was going to win. He's changed up a lot and managed to get Fury into tip-top shape. He's still there. I think everyone seems to be there that was in the first fight into the second fight now. Just maybe a little bit more subdued and not as rambunctious as they were the first time round. But the big thing from a Fury perspective is that he's said that, look, I was in tip-top shape for that first fight, but that's not me. That's not the way I want to be for the second fight. I want to be the destructive Fury from the Fury versions of the Wilder 2 and Wilder 3 fight, carrying a bit more weight, not looking like a prime athlete, but just looking like a destructive force. And I think that might be the one that we see in front of us in the rematch in December. I think that's more the bigger concern as to whether he can get there and still be that guy.
Yeah, I don't know on that one how I would go personally. And this will be a little bit of a two-parter here, Des. Personally, I kind of think that I would want to come in a little bit lighter because I thought he gave Usyk the most problems when he was putting his punches together and trying to be light on his feet. And, that's not the duty of a fat man. So, try to come down a little bit, but also staying away from the specifics of it. And I know he loves his family, but, more stuff coming out as far as excuses from him as to why he might have lost to Usyk. And Des, I worry about a guy who keeps coming up with excuses because I feel like that's going to make them avoid the work where it needs to be put in to actually fill in that margin and get the W the next time out.
I'm one of these guys. I don't. I want to say this in a nice way. I don't listen to Tyson Fury much. I watched the weigh-in and I watched the fight, but I don't do Tyson Fury interviews. I don't do Tyson Fury press conferences.
Do you do Tyson Fury energy drinks?
No, I don't. No,
okay.
I don't. I just find a lot of his stuff. I just find it ever so cringe, and I don't know. It just he reminds me of someone that's very childlike, and at my time of life, I can't be doing with it. So I tend to watch the weigh-in and I watch the fight, and I think he's a very capable fighter. I think he's very good. I think we've seen the better Tyson Fury. I think his trajectory is slightly on the down now. We spoke about you mentioned his weight there. Now I'm going to get these numbers wrong because I didn't prepare for this. I didn't actually see what he was, but against Usyk he was tipping 260 pound. I thought that was too light. I think Tyson Fury operates better when he's Deontay Wilder 2 weight, which was somewhere tipping 270. So I think we'll see Tyson somewhere 10 pound to a stone heavier. And I wouldn't normally say that about a heavyweight. I didn't agree with it. Fraser Clark coming in heavy. I don't agree with people just being heavy for the sake of it. But I think Tyson Fury is quite unique. I think he operates better when he's an 18-wheeler. You're never going to heavy bag Tyson Fury, so I don't mind him coming a little bit heavier. I think he operates better when he's got a bit more weight on him, and I think he boxes well when he's a bigger man. Was you going to say something, Matty?
Well, he's got 40 pounds on him if he comes in the mid 260s, probably. Like, how much?
He's still not big enough. No, he's still not big enough. He's very unique. He's a very unique character. I promise you this. Even at 26, 27 stone, he could walk into a gym and still outbox a lot of world-class heavyweights in sparring. He's a very unique character like that. So if you're talking about Fraser Clark or we're talking about Martin Bacoli, I'd make you 100% right. But with Tyson Fury, I think he personally operates better 270 upwards. I don't think it suits him being lighter. Psychologically, I don't think he's the same person. I think he knows how to box like a big man, and I think he needs to do that in this one. We saw glimpses of it in the first one. I think it was between round 2 and 5. Tyson Fury was boxing like a big man, but he couldn't sustain it. Now, how do you put on nearly a stone in weight from your last fight and get fitter? I'm not sure that's conducive. I think they go in opposite directions. But he needs to get a weight that's comfortable for him. And I think Tyson Fury is comfortable at a heavier weight. But that doesn't apply to most people, but it does to him. In answer to the question about what's the kid on the undercard, Ames Lowe, isn't it? Isaac Lowe. Is he boxing Lee McGregor, Ames?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, it's a hard fight, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a tough fight.
That's a tough fight for Isaac. So yeah, Isaac Lowe's still sniffing around. With regards to the father, if I remember correctly, the father made a lot of disparaging remarks about Sugar Hill and called for him to be sacked. So how the hell does that dynamic work if you're meant to be doing a 12-week camp and you're in the gym every day with these people? I don't quite know how that could possibly work. I didn't like the corner first time round. I thought John, there was too much talking, too many voices. The wrong instructions were being delivered. But I do understand John's the kid's father. John's the fighter's father. And the Tyson obviously has an awful lot of affection for his dad and holds him in high regard because you wouldn't have him so close to you at such an important night. So Tyson obviously feels there's a value in John. Not too dissimilar to, say, Daniel and Stan. You know, it's a very hard bond to break. John will be there. In what capacity, I don't know. Did someone say he's going to be in the corner with Andy Lee and Sugar Hill? Did somebody just say that?
Yeah, I believe so. Tyson said that he's keeping the same corner. So
Right. Well, there you go. Ames has just told us. So we expect to see him in the corner. Expect to see him fight week, and he'll make loads of noise. That's what he does. He's what Mike Tyson's Matty. Remind me this chap's name. Was it the Crocodile Man or Crocodile, whatever his name was? They were Mike Tyson.
What?
Do you remember the Crocodile Man that hung around with Mike Tyson back in the 90s? Do you remember him?
No, not for the life of me.
Well, someone in the chat will, but he made loads of noise and he antagonised everybody and he was a big mouthpiece and it kind of deflected perhaps a little bit of pressure and attention off of the fighter. I think John will do the same thing fight week. And as Ames just said, he's going to be in the corner. So let's hope that they've all got their jobs and their roles and people don't overtalk each other. But no, in answer to the question, Isaac Lowe's on the undercard. We've been told by Andy Lee and Ames John will be in the corner, and I can fully expect to see John Fury and John Fury Mo fight come fight week.
All right. So, Justin, going back to what Des said, if 7 weeks out, if you're Tyson Fury, are you coming to the ring with titties or without titties?
His name was Fitch. His nickname was Crocodile. He was the dude that would like run out there and say crazy stuff. So you were right. And somebody got it. I think Arlene Burley got it.
Arlene
too.
Burley, Steve Fitch. That was his name, Steve Fitch. But I know him as the Crocodile. Is that right? Was his nickname the Crocodile?
That was his nickname, the Crocodile. Steve the Crocodile. That was his name. No, I agree. I think if Fury, I mean, I agree with Des on that. I don't listen to Fury interviews anymore. They're the exact same. He doesn't add any new material. It's just the same exact thing. And so you know what he's going to say. So there's really no point of listening anymore. Like Des said, just wait till he shows up, see what he looks like, and let the fight happen because he doesn't have any new material. It's kind of getting stale after a while. But I agree. If that puts him in the mindset because that's when he fought the best versus Wilder, then he should come in as fat as he wants to. If that's what he wants to do and that makes him – because in boxing is such a mental game. If that's what he thinks is going to give him that edge and he mentally believes it, come in bigger. And I know a lot of people, I know we're not giving predictions, but I know a lot of people were like, Usyk's got it. Usyk's got it. I don't think any of us who've watched boxing would be surprised if Tyson beats him. Maybe not knock him out, but Tyson can win this fight. And this is not a major upset if he beats him. If he beats him, if Fury comes in mentally ready, and he is focused, he can beat Usyk. Usyk is not unbeatable. Fury had a lot of good moments in that first fight. He did a lot of good things. He could beat him.
It was a close fight where, regardless of how you or I scored it, the knockdown decided the fight. It was very close, very close.
And Matty, like, so picking up on what Justin said there, remember Tyson Fury's, let's say, without being disrespectful, Tyson Fury's supersized, isn't he? He's super big, and he's been supersized all his life. When he was a 14-year-old, he'd have been the biggest kid in the class. When he was 16, he'd have been the biggest kid on any sort of squad he was going to. And now you see him now, he's huge, Tyson Fury. He's so big, he's ungangly. I don't think it suits Tyson Fury to come down to 2. I know 260 is still big, but I don't think he's big enough for him. So I think 270 plus is when you get the best version of Tyson Fury. And I'm absolutely convinced he'll get on them scales 272 to 275.
Interesting. Yeah, that might be an interesting, a little fight week prediction for us to do on the show before
and
the fight.
That won't be quite a stone at 275, but it won't be far short of a stone. Won't be far short of it. And certainly when he gets off them scales and has a bite to eat, it'll be well over a stone what he was in the first fight. And I think that's where Tyson Fury is going to go. I think he's tried the smaller version. He's tried coming in a bit more athletic for him. It doesn't suit his psyche. I think he'll be heavier, much heavier.
Yeah.
What do you think, Matty?
That you have to lean towards Usyk in this fight at this point in time, but I just and that's because I feel like Fury is still looking for an excuse as to why, and it's I don't know, I'm looking forward to it, and but no outcome is going to surprise me, and that's why I'm looking forward to it. Again, it's a fantastic fight, and this has been a good year.
Matty, do you think John should be in the corner?
No. He's a fucking lunatic.
Do you think John... I'm just going to throw this out. Do you think John maybe does what he does to take a little bit of the spotlight away from Fury? Not in a negative way, but in a way to...
take the heat off of his son.
Take the heat off the pressure and make the... Look, everyone's hunting from a media perspective for the Fury interview. And that's not excusing John, who shouldn't have headbutted the poor fella who was on the receiving end. But to, get some of the spotlight away from Tyson so he can exit out of a back door and get some rest, and he can kind of take the spotlight and take some of the interview time away so Tyson can focus on the fight week and get ready for it.
If he hadn't been headbutting people, I might agree with your John Fury is Christ-like take.
I don't think we should assume that I don't think these guys have sat around a table and orchestrated this. I think this is very organic. I think this is a dynamic and a chemistry that's been going on all their life. I think they're both very colourful characters. I think John's a loudmouth, but in a good way. I think he loves to be up the front. He's the loudest man in the room, right? And we know what we say about them guys, but they have a value. And I think Tyson and his dad, without sitting down saying, "Dad, can you take the pressure off me?" And "Dad, can you go over there and take all that with you?" I just think it's a very organic arrangement. I think John's been next to his son for most of his life, and on this journey, John wants to be close with him, and I think that suits Tyson. Look, a father and son dynamic should be close. It should be healthy, and I think that's what we've got here. It's just we're getting a glimpse into it, and the fact that the reality is John is a bit of a loudmouth, and he's a little bit uncouth, and he's not exactly a gentleman. Not all the time. He ain't when he wants to be.
The apple does not fall far from the tree either, does.
Well, I think with the pair of them, I think you've got split personalities, and you've got more sides than a dodecahedron. You just don't know what you're going to get.
If you give a shrink for a few hours with them, you're probably going to find at least a half dozen personalities between the two.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I think John. Sorry, Andrew. I think John's got a value, and I think he's absolutely got a value where his son's concerned.
But it would be such a. I would be inclined to think that I would offer here as well, just to throw out there too. Like, to lose John from the corner, like Des is saying there, someone who's been there from the moment, from day dot all the way in a professional sense, not to forget the fatherhood sense, but just from the professional sense of seeing everything, having all that experience of a fight week, then to lose that, and not that Sugar Hill and Andy Lee have done that, but that won't contribute that as well too. But they've contributed that from their career perspectives, from a Sugar Hill steward perspective, from an Andy Lee perspective. But John will have only be focused on his son's perspective. So to lose that, I think as well too, just because of, I don't know, maybe a little bit of chaos and things in the background. I don't think the solution is just as simple as losing John means that you win the fight.
No,
but do you accept, James?
Answer.
Do you accept, James, that if you're going to go into a science lab, you have to be qualified, and if you're going to go onto a football dugout, you have to have your badges. I don't like the idea that anyone can rock up into a professional boxing corner, particularly on a fight of this magnitude. But I understand boxing's got that ability where you can slip people in, and you'll find someone like John Fury in the corner of the biggest fight in the sport, undisputed heavyweight title. But I think he should know how to conduct himself, and I think there should be a mutual respect with fellow professionals. I think there should be a balance of, when I talk, everyone else keeps quiet. I'm the head coach. I think if John's going to be in that corner and he's going to have a value, I'm sure he has got a value. It should be done professionally. Don't you agree?
Sure, can't argue with that.
I don't want the heavyweight division and heavyweight boxing and our top fighters to make a mockery of how good they are and how tough this sport is. If anyone's going to be in that corner, in any corner, I've actually think that we should completely reform how boxing coaches are trained and the qualifications they obtain and how they get them. I think there should be, much like how the FA have completely reformed their whole protocol and how you go and get badges. I think boxing could follow that example. But up until that point, until that actually happens, I think we've got to have people in corners that know what they're doing, know what they're saying, and conduct themselves in a very professional manner. I'm not saying John Fury can't be that guy, but I like to see it.
I think the thing with this, and the bottom line is for this as well too, is that Fury's got him in the court. Fury will have the final say. Tyson Fury, that is, and Fury clearly sees the value of having John in the corner. Yeah. And I can't imagine that's just all right, Dad, come have the experience of being in my corner and whatever, and we'll have a laugh afterwards. There must be some reason as to why Tyson.
No, he has a value. Absolutely, Aim. You're right. He does have a value.
But adding to that as well too, Tyson's the man who has the accountability, not the corner. I mean, the corner will get their flack as well too if they lose again. They should do. But the man who makes the decision on the corner is the fighter here, and the decision and the buck stops with him. If he comes out with this fight with a defeat again, he has got to take the accountability just as much as the corner have to take the accountability, maybe even more so, because it's his decision and his career.
All right. Well, that was a good discussion there, Connor. I hope you felt like you got your money's worth. We appreciate your continued support of the Boxing Asylum Nuthouse here. And let's see here. I'm going to move on to the boxing schedule next week. Here's one for you. A little bit niche, not much to say about this one. Just keeping an eye on some people here. Card from Montreal on Wednesday, or it might be Thursday. And we're going to have on that card, Wilkins Matthew is on there. One to keep an eye on. Demetrius Sanyo against Mateus Carlos Adrian Rueda. I don't know if I've seen Sanyo. Stephen Butler working his way back up. Taking on Diego Gabriel Chavez. I think you guys might remember Chavez from his 147 days. Going to have a women's fight. Layla Baudouin. Probably said that wrong. Baudouin. Probably Baudouin. Versus Edith Soledad Matisse. I do believe she is related to Lucas. But the one you're interested in there, Des. Oslis Iglesias is on this card against Petro Ivanov in a 12-round super middleweight contest. Moving this kid along.
Yeah, he's going to be my breakout star in 2025, Iglesias. I'm really high on him. in keeping with this brilliant crop of prospects we have in boxing that have had brilliant amateur careers and being matched really tough in their first 10 to 15 fights. And Glazias is no different. He's fighting Petryanov, who both of them are based in Germany. Petrov is Ukraine and then Glazias is Cuban. They're boxing out in Canada, but Petra is 18-0 and he can punch as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how Iglesias comes through it. I think he will come through it. I think they've taken this fight because they know he can come through it. Both of them being based in Germany, they know a lot of each team would know a lot about the other. But it's one I'm definitely looking forward to. I'm really big on Iglesias. But this is a hard fight for him. But it's just typical because they are matching these kids tough.
Yeah, and it's good to see him move along. It's definitely the toughest fight of his career, at least on paper. So again, with that one, you'll be able to catch Thursday night stateside, and you'll be able to catch it in the morning on Friday if you're over in the UK. There's also going to be a Pro Box card on Saturday. Nicholas Flaws on that one. He's working his way up. He is a talented guy. I had a little bit of troubles early in his career, but I think there's a lot there. Ames, is there anything going on in the UK that's to speak of this weekend?
I don't think so, unless I'm missing something that's completely off my radar, but I'm not scheduled to be anywhere this weekend. I believe there's going to be a launch press conference for Magnificent 7 card coming up this weekend, and also a event for Frank Warren's signing with Queensbury. But other than that, in terms of an in-ring action, I don't think there's anything on these shores this weekend.
Oh, there you go. So we'll move it on.
Is Keyshawn boxing soon, Matty? Have I jumped the
that's
gun there?
what we're going into right now.
Right, sorry, mate.
You're fine.
He's fighting Friday.
Yeah, Friday. It's we're gonna have an ESPN Plus card, more top rank action. Let's see here. What all do we have on there that's interesting? Rais Salim working his way back up. He's in a 10-rounder against Darylin Hernandez-Uraldo. Robert Merriweather III against Eric Howard. Keon Davis against Jalen Moore. Austin Deanda against Deandra Pettis. Calvin Davis, yes, brother of Keyshawn Davis, against Yes Solano. Abdullah Mason, there's one to watch, against Johan Vasquez. Troy Isley against Tyler Howard. And then Keyshawn Davis against Gustavo Lemos. Lemos, most of us believe, beat Richardson Hitchens at 140 pounds. He's back down to 135 pounds. The undercard, some good names, but overall the matchmaking, I don't know what the upsets are going to be there, but I'll tell you what, Justin, I like this main event a lot. I think that Lemos, I don't know if he wins, but I think he's going to take Davis to places he has yet to be before.
Oh, Davis is going to get his boxing man card Friday. Like we're going to see, I think he'll win, but we're going to see truly what he's got because he's going to get pushed because Lemos is, he's just coming to win. He's not going to be there just to show up. And like you said, I think, did he beat Hitchens? It was close, but
He
I think
beat Hitchens. Most people thought it was a robbery.
Well, his style is just not fun to watch anyway, but Keyshawn should win, but he's going to get tested, and we're going to see if, like I said, he's going to get his boxing man card. If he could actually, if he stops Lemos, that's a huge feather for him. But I think he'll win. I think he's better than Hitchens. So I think, I don't know how you look at it that way, but I think he'll win. This is, like you said, this is not a great card, but I like watching Mason. I think Isley's decent, so that's something to watch. But Keyshawn, the only thing you worry about him is that I like how they didn't get him. This is like they're building it as his homecoming fight, the big Norfolk thing.
Yeah. I think so.
But I like how Top Rank didn't get him an easy guy. They got him somebody who's going to bring it out. So I like that factor in it, that they just here, you've got to beat this guy. I don't care if it's your homecoming fight, because sometimes you get easy touches. I like this.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting to me is the fact that Lemos is he spent most of his career at 135, and he definitely bothered Hitchens with his power and coming down. I expect Davis to get touched in this fight, and it's all a matter of how he reacts to that. But as far as it goes, Ames, I don't think you're much of a gambling man. But I don't think this is Lemos should be paying 9-2. I think that he's this is a substantially closer fight on paper. Ames, did you leave for a while? Huh? Anyhow, hey, Rob jumped on. Hey, right on. I was looking through the schedule and Rob magically appears. Rob, why don't you take this question? How are you looking at Davis versus Gustavo Lemos?
Yeah, I like Keyshawn Davis, but there's been a lot said about him, like, isn't it? Without, well, he's kind of on the start of his journey. There's seems to be a lot of kind of weight and pressure on him, and high expectations on him and a lot of it's coming from him getting the co-sign off of like more well-established fighters, or everyone's saying he's the one to watch and he's the problem. That doesn't always kind of. I think when you put that kind of pressure on guys when they're so early in their career, then you're kind of putting their flaws under a microscope also. Do you know that way? So it's like you have lofty expectations of them, but then there's still obviously, there should still obviously be bandwidth for them to learn on the job a little bit. So we're going to see it. Like, what we want to see is them getting tested though. So if these kids are highly rated and highly touted, then you want to see them with, if they're as good as people say they are, you want to see them with real live opposition. And I think this is it. So I think if he makes a stoppage here, if he gets a stoppage here, he'd be making a big statement. If he cruises to a decision, he probably won't be keeping people happy, that way. But as long as as long as it's an exciting fight, I don't really care too much, that way. But I think he is a good kid. He's one to watch, and there's big fights for him down the line. But these are the ones that you got to win and win well on the way to kind of get people to buy into your story. So.
Well, and I think this is the first time in his career he's fought a genuine puncher as well. I honestly would be more inclined to put a couple of bucks just floating them on Lemos than throwing Davis to win as part of a parlay. Not because that's not more likely. The odds makers are correct, but I don't know, Des. I think this is a dangerous fight for the kid, but it's one that he definitely needs if he's to just say that, yeah, I want to compete with these killers at 135.
If you want to put any money on Lemos, I'll take that. I'll take that action off you, Matty. I don't think Lemos has any chance with Keyshawn at all. And Lemos is a good fighter. Lemos can punch, very experienced. And his only defeat against Hitchens, I thought actually beat Hitchens. So I've got Lemos at 30-0, 19 by stoppage. But I just think Keyshawn is a very special talent. Going back to what Rob said, he was given, the big build up. He was told, we've heard from an awful lot of good fighters and the people in boxing that this guy is the one to watch. The problem, I agree with him. And then if I look at that group at 35, Scofield, Cruz, Mason, I think Keyshawn, I think he's the one in pole. I think he's from what I've seen of him, I like the way he puts his shots together. I like the way he works angles. He's spiteful. I like the way he's got that little bit of snap behind his punch. I really like him. I think he's a real big talent, and they all are. And they're being matched heavy. Scofield got matched tough last night, and Andy Cruz is being matched tough, and Abdullah Mason will be matched tough, and Keyshawn's now having to fight guys like Lemos. So they're putting these guys in a great position to come out to take over from the guys like Tank and Shakur and Zapita and Loma when they move on, and Navarrete when they move on. I think we're in for a real treat in the next 2 or 3 years if they all stick around at 135. I think Keyshawn wins. I think it's a statement win. I think Lemos will come looking for Keyshawn, and I think that's what's going to get him in trouble. I think Keyshawn lights him up and wins by stoppage.
Interesting. That would be a real statement here.
It will be, yeah. It'd be a big statement win for him, and he knows that as well. He knows it. It's all on the line for him. It's all being set up for him, and I think it was you or Justin said it, that it's a homecoming, but it's a hard homecoming for him. And I think Keyshawn, the talent that he is, will respond to that.
Yeah, I mean, he stops a guy like Lemos. I'm going to be very, very impressed with that one. Ames, I don't know if you're back on there, but as far as it goes, I actually I'd be impressed with that stoppage because I kind of think that the way that he's probably going to go to victory, and unfortunately this doesn't help with his stock, is going to be that kind of boring Keyshawn Davis that we saw prior to the Pedraza fight. I don't know that he's going to produce what he needs to ignite. What are your thoughts? Are you going Davis? Are you going stoppage? Or are you going decision? Maybe Ames has disappeared for good. Maybe he has been kidnapped.
Maybe someone has took Ames.
We've been asking him all along, and here we are. Got our wish, unfortunately. Damn it all. But Ames, I don't. I hope you're okay wherever you are. But yeah, I think that's an interesting fight on paper. I think it might not be interesting in the ring. I would prefer Dez is correct, and that Davis makes a statement with the stoppage over Lemos, because I think his route to victory is actually really, really boring.
But I think Keyshawn's performance against Pedraza and Najuano, I think they've really put him in good. I think they put him in really good position here. Like I say, I think he's of all the guys we named down at 35, and there's a lot of talent there, super talent. What a pull that is! There's no division like it. I think he's just in pole. I really do. I think he's a real talent, Keyshawn.
Yeah, it's a tough division to be talented in, because there's a lot of talented guys in there. You really need that X factor, but this is one of those fights. It's a proving ground. But the next night, I don't know if there's any proving grounds here, but we got a couple of big names in action in Philadelphia after the good numbers from the first go around with Mr. Ennis. He's going to be taking on Karen Sharkisian for the second time. God knows that 120, 108 adventure needed to be replayed again. Thanks, IBF. Also, the main support on there is going to be Jesse Rodriguez against Pedro Guevara, who I believe has earned his spot there. I believe he had a win over Carlos Cuadras. It might have been. He's been around the block, brings a lot of experience. Interesting fight for Bam. The aforementioned Raymond Ford taking on Orlando Gonzalez in his first foray at 130 pounds. And then Khalil Coe against Manuel Gallegos. It's 10 rounds of 175. Ernesto Mercado and Austin Williams both taking on TBA. How will they fight twice in the same night and at different weight classes? That's just who TBA is. Bow down, people. No one can do it like TBA. Justin, what are your fights on this card? There's some names on it, but my God, I don't know if there's a competitive fight on this one. Maybe Guevara might make it slightly interesting against Bam.
So basically, Ennis has to rematch this guy because the guy was a little bit better than people thought he was. Because that's how it looks, because it wasn't a fun fight the first time. I don't know. This is the stupidest rematch I've seen. There's no point in this. This guy's not going to win. It's going to be 120, 108, but I think Ennis will stop him this time. Bam, he'll end up stopping his guy late, probably. Raymond Ford, we'll see what he's got. This is just a move up just to get him ready for the weight fight. So this is going to be a nothing fight for him. So yeah, I guess this was just, they wanted Ennis in Philadelphia where he's from, and they just went with this. I know the IBF ordered it. I don't know. That doesn't make any sense. This guy just stood up longer than people thought he would, and now he's got to fight him again.
Yeah, the one thing I think that might be interesting is if you're taking a look at the odds. I haven't looked at like over under on rounds and stoppages and stuff. I actually think, Rob, that there's a fair chance that this time Boots doesn't necessarily fuck around, and he might actually get Sarkisian out of here early. Karens around the world will scream.
Let's hope so. Fuck's sake. I think Ennis is just head and shoulders above this guy. You mentioned since the IBF, they seem to be trying to outdo each other in terms of ridiculousness. The sanctioning bodies, the IBF, seem to be at the forefront lately of calling these fucking mandatories immediately and not allowing for any kind of breathing space. You've seen it with the heavyweights, and it's going down. Like, I don't know how long this lasts under the current regime, whether they're not all obsolete in the 5-year future, but for the moment we're going to have to put up with it, which means we're going to have to see Ennis against a guy we don't want to see him in with. I'd say he'll get the stoppage this time.
Yeah, and I don't know. Hunching early on this one. Des, what are your thoughts on Boots Karen 2? Now it's really doesn't matter.
Yeah, but I can see the theory behind it. Eddie's getting him out in Philadelphia, and Boots is potentially one of boxing's next stars, and he's a title holder in one of the sports premier divisions, and he wants to get him out in Philadelphia. He's got a few kids on the card that are local. Austin Williams, Mercado is getting out. He's got Bam getting out, who's another big star in the game, and I'd like to see Raymond Ford up at Super Feather. We spoke about this earlier on. I think we think Feather. I think we think Super Feather is sort of sandwiched between two super divisions. And if someone can come up to Super Feather and show a little bit of that edge, a bit of talent, I think they could go and clean up. So I think it'd be interesting to see what Raymond Ford does. It should be a knockover, and we want to see how he adjusts at the new weight class. But I'm interested to see how Raymond Ford does up at that new division because I think he's a real talent. But yeah, Boots is a win, Bam's a win, Ford's a win. Be great to see Williams get out again, Mercado. It's a fun card. It's not to be taken too seriously, this one. It's just keeping kids active, getting Boots out in Philadelphia and bringing some other Philadelphian kids along the way. It's just a fun card.
Yeah, hopefully it's fun. I'm not gonna watch 12 rounds of Jaron Ennis against Karen Shakishan again. If this fight goes past 8 and it's not looking interesting, I'm shutting the shit off. I got shit.
You don't think Boots will open up on him this time?
I do. I really do. But if for some reason it doesn't happen by the 8th or 9th round, I'm bailing out. I'm not going to spend another 20 minutes on it.
I think Eddie would have had a chat with him and said, "Look, I'm doing this all for you. You're at home. These are your people. Let's see what you've got." And I think Boots knows he's much better than his opponent. I think you'll see the best version of Boots next weekend.
Yeah, no, hopefully it shows you can at least, learn to walk him down on a little bit there. But yeah, it's I don't know. We'll see, but at least there's a good amount of fights happening. Before we get out of here, let's thank some of the people in the chat. And actually, I want to hear Rob and what he might have thought on the last week. We got a little bit of time here, but real quick, let's see here. I want to thank the guys in the chat: M. Lithgow, Ryan Ormerod, MBAP. Man, got all sorts of acronyms in there. Ryan Deal in there, Arlene Burley, Michael Thompson. Captain Casual, otherwise known as Damo. Appreciate you, Ray, in there. Yimmy Yappy in there earlier. Connor Mateer again, thank you very much for that super chat. We appreciate you. Damo also threw one in there. Jim McDonald Boxing. Is it the real Jim McDonald Boxing? We don't even know anymore. It's a very confusing time. Harvey Price Boxing returns. Porky's Corner. Is that the real Porky's Corner? God only knows. It's again very confusing. Simon Hill as well. Beep Bop Boop. Nice to see him in here as well. And let's see. Miami Virtue in here as well. We've been seeing him more often. So yeah, we appreciate y'all for coming in here and being part of the show. Rob, what did you catch this weekend before we bounce out of here? I'd like to get your thoughts on how you thought your boy Oshaki Foster did there in the rematch.
Yeah, he's a good kid. He's a good lad, isn't he, Oshaki Foster? Like, and he hasn't had things his own way as a pro. And it kind of, when you expected him to have his moment against Conceição the last night out, after kind of getting there the hard way, it didn't go his way. But he, again, does things the hard way, reverses it, comes back, and he's a likable guy. He's a lot to like about Oshaki Foster. So you want to see him keep going now and get into some good matches, maybe get some bigger paydays for himself because he's definitely established himself. Yeah, and I like him, man. He's good. He's good value. I didn't see much of the British card, but or the card in Northern Ireland either. But the interesting thing for me this week in terms of boxing, the press run for the War in Waterford, which is only the next city down for me, in December, a pro box card headlined by Tyrone McKenna, has 2 Wexford welterweights on it. So we mentioned Dean Speedy Gonzalez. So Dean Walsh has turned over to pro as well now under Condom Boxing. Extremely talented guy from Wexford. Won 4 All-Ireland titles. Had a couple of missteps, you could say, outside the ring, which resulted in him having to uh, to deal with the consequences. Put it that way. But he's come out on the other side of it. He won the All Ireland again, the senior title last year, and then didn't get selected for the Olympics. So, despite beating the guy who went on to go on to the qualifiers, so an exciting time for him, and a very strange time for me that like Paulie Malignaggi and Chris Algeria are down in Waterford doing press runs. I think that's amazing, man. So best of luck to him on his journey. I'm sure
Are
he's
you going to
going to do
go to
big
the
stuff.
fight?
Yeah, I probably will, dude. I probably will. It's
Right
only down
on.
the road, like. Yeah. So, Ames, if you're over covering the fucking war in Waterford, just let me know.
Well, fourth time the charm.
Yeah, exactly. 4th time lucky, dude.
If you're not going, make sure he gets your credentials.
Yeah, actually, good shout. I don't want to be mixing with the fucking, don't want to be mixing with the riffraff. You know what I mean? There's going to be plenty of it there. I'm joking.
Green room only, Rob. Green room only.
Exactly.
Green room only. So, yeah, it was. And next week we're going to be in here previewing the Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul card. Yeah, exactly. Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul card. But that's also going to be the home of Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano too, and yours truly will be in attendance for that.
Are you going to that?
Yeah, we've decided that to go to that one.
How much does it cost you, Matty?
I don't know. My girlfriend asked me, she's like, what do you want for Christmas? And I said, honestly, I would just like to go see Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano fight more than anything. I don't give a shit if I get anything on Christmas proper.
So you'll walk out after the Katie Taylor Serrano fight, right?
Oh, fuck no. I'm staying for the sideshow. Oh, I'm totally staying for the sideshow. Just to see Mike Tyson walk to the ring one last time. Like, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm there for the sideshow. The undercard's actually not terrible either.
This is fucking 50. This is putting this card up in doubt now, because if he books a ticket to see fucking Serrano, there's a 90% chance it's not going to happen.
Oh, you're fucking telling me. I thought about that so fucking hard, Rob, before I ever said anything. I'm like, God,
This might be the saddest Christmas gift I've ever had anybody ask for. The saddest one I've ever heard. Hey, I know you love women boxing, but this is pretty tough.
No way. The first fight was the best fight in the history of women's boxing. Why would
that's not saying much.
I've seen some good scraps. I just wish that they're 10 minutes longer. This 2-minute shit's ridiculous. But I don't know that this one's going to be as good as the first one, but I still think it's going to be very entertaining. And it's at a contracted weight, I think, of 137. I kind of don't think the weight matters too much there. But yeah, I don't know. I'm looking forward to it. But
would you, Matty? I imagine if you wrapped up all your parlay wins, if you wrapped them up in a big cash ball and put a load of elastic bands around it, you get close to a huge number, probably around like $2 million. Would you trade that all in for a VIP ticket, which apparently has 2 unique ringside seats, 4 first row seats, a security escort during the fight, a private green room, top shelf bar, gloves signed by Paul and Tyson, place on stage during the weigh-in, a luxury mini coach to events. Mini, I don't know how you're going to get in.
You're going to have
Front row
to keep going.
to fight week events, 2 nights luxury stay at a fight hotel, and a post-fight in-ring opportunity with the fighters as well. I think you get to go into the dressing room as well before the fight. Would you do it?
Fuck no. I'd keep like $500,000 and put $1.5 million in an account
On a parlay,
getting 5% a year or something. That's
a sensible answer, Matty.
Yeah, that's fucking. Why the hell would I do something stupid like that? Like, I would rather have money where I could just sit around.
What is the parlay bet on that fight?
What would I bet on those? You actually can't bet on the Tyson fight in Colorado. I don't know what the odds are in that one. I'm not the one to ask on Taylor and Serrano, because I want Amanda to win. So I have too much of a fan commitment to make a good plea on that one. So I don't know. I don't have any good bets. I haven't been making that many bets lately. I'm betting more on college football, and I'm about even.
Bit of a dry spell.
No, I just haven't wanting to bet very much lately. Just like there haven't been any fights where I'm like those odds are super tasty, really. Like, yeah, like
Well, I
Lemos.
never fucking stopped you before.
But what matters is it's stopping me now.
Yeah, you're right. I hate everything to do with this apart from the Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano fight. A bit of me hates that as well. I've said before, I kind of wished Katie maybe bowed out by now, like, possibly before this for a Chantel Cameron fight. But she's had her loss. They will come back, and she definitely proved me wrong. I thought she was going to get beaten and stopped in the second Chantel Cameron fight. So I don't know how this goes. The first one was nip and tuck. I thought Taylor won it, but there was people that thought otherwise. I think if it goes close, I think Serrano's going to get the decision. I hate this for Mike Tyson.
Especially after the Puerto Ricans are garbage comment to that Trump rally. Like the country's behind Puerto Ricans right now. So
yeah, everyone except fucking J-Lo, fuck's sake. Maybe J-Lo's just a pain in the ass. Anyone ever think of that? What?
she is mostly ass. I bet like nearly half her body weight is in her behind.
Oh, she's a pain in the ass. But anyway, fucking, what was I going to say? Yeah, I think I think that's a close fight again, and I think Serrano will get the nod on the cards. The Tyson thing, I hate. I hate it so much. Like Tyson and Ali are the two ones that are closest to our generation. Tyson was in my generation of the most instantly recognizable global faces of boxing. Everybody on planet Earth knows certain people like Michael Jackson, fucking Maradona, Muhammad Ali, Mike Tyson. He's up there, and I was 8 years of age when he won the fucking world title at 20 years of age, and he was a phenomenon. And you saw what a global draw he had. Like, it's hard to put into words how much of a fucking rock star Mike Tyson was, how big he was. But with that, we've had oversaturation of Mike Tyson content for the last 30 years. It's been all the circus of him coming back the second time, the loss to Kevin McBride, then you had the one-man stage show, you had the fucking documentary, you've had the book, you've had the podcast, you've had Mike Tyson everywhere,
The
man.
Hangover.
The Hangover, you had him he has his own strain of Wheaties. Like, I'm happy for the guy in his life that it's come, that he finally has peace, it seems. What he's doing back in the ring against, obviously he's generating massive, massive money, like, but the possibility of seeing him lose, like, I know I saw him lose to Kevin McBride, that was hard enough, like, the possibility of seeing him lose to a guy who's as big of a fucking jerk off as Jake Paul, like, I can't, it's just so fucking tragic, like, but it is boxing, it's happened since the dawn of time where boxing fighters fought on past their sell by date, went broke,
You
fought
think
for a
of
buck,
like
fought.
Ali with his mustache, smoking cigarettes, preparing to fight Trevor Burbick. You know?
Yeah. It always ends that way. And like, I do not want to see Mike Tyson fucking rocked by Jake Paul, or even fucking having trouble with him. It's just so at this age, like, he's nearly 60 years of age. Like, even if he's getting paid a big whack of money for it, some part of me is going to be dead inside watching this. Like,
But what
so I
if he
hate it.
comes up from just like not like he used to, from like coming up from almost the floor? But what if he goes underneath and comes up with one last
He looked good
left hook
against Roy
over the
Jones a couple
top?
of years ago. He did look good against Roy Jones a couple of years
Yeah.
ago. Like, he looked like he could have took Roy out. Like, it was only an exhibition, but still, dude, like, it's just part of me is dead thinking about this fucking spectacle. Like, he was the man. Like, he was everything to the sport at one stage, and now it's just like, I don't know. Like, the circus of Mike Tyson continues in 2024. Like,
Yeah. I don't know, but yeah, we'll get into this a little bit more next week. Everyone will be talking about it. You know, it's one of those things. Got to hit up the
Mate,
hashtags, get in the listeners.
have we discussed the Frank Warrington DAZN thing?
No, we haven't. Do you want to discuss that for a while?
Yeah, unless anyone needs to shoot off.
No, I think that'd be fine for like a little 10, 15 minute or after. And I think I alluded to it earlier. Maybe it was from Damos, the super chat. But yeah, Frank Warren is going to be now working with the Zone starting in April of this year. There's already talking about potential cards they can do with Matchroom over there. So this is it's interesting. Maybe that DAZN subscription is finally going to be worth the money that I've paid for it, because there's kind of at this point in time monopolizing a lot of the promotions over there on DAZN. But yeah, what have you been hearing about it, Ames?
Or maybe it comes with another price hike. I haven't heard that, but I do wonder and worry about that. And I wonder
You watch your whore mouth.
No, well, I'll be straightforward and honest to you. I subscribed to DAZN. I was quite interested, and I wasn't covering the 5 versus 5. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to get this crystal clear, watch this, sit back at home, and just enjoy it. And I did enjoy it, but what with being within the industry and things, like I'm out in the field, I never really got back to watching DAZN. I ended up cancelling my subscription. I was paying the $24.99 a month, and on the way out, they offered me $10.99. I was like, Netflix is a couple of quid more, so I had to decline. I got Netflix instead. Just finished rewatch of Breaking Bad, which was excellent as well. If anyone hasn't seen Breaking Bad, it's unbelievable. I'm sure I'm late to that train. Anyways, I'm sure you've all seen it. Matt, you probably lived it. But yeah, no, I'm worried more so about the scene, the British boxing scene, because we never really have had a real clue in as to the viewership or the subscribership of DAZN. And in the UK, more so specifically, I don't think the numbers have been released anywhere. But when it comes to that viewership, as a fighter, would you not be worried that you'd not be getting the spotlight for the maximum amount you put in, your body that you're putting on the line? That not only you get paid, but this is getting you somewhere. Your profile is being boosted. You're getting people. You're getting eyes on you. The eyes that you deserve for what you put into the 8 weeks or whatever it is that you train for a fight night. And it's one of those things where, if it leads me to believe, when promoters aren't trumpeting that number, when they aren't pushing out that this is a major success, when they aren't saying what the viewing figures are and they're keeping it to themselves, that usually is a sign to say that actually it isn't a huge success right now. We might not be getting the numbers that we need to be getting, and we need to do something about that. And I just think if we're pushing British boxing to a place where it's getting less coverage or less viewership, then it's another knock for the sport, I guess, because traditional TV is still the traditional go-to outlet. It's the one that gets the most amount of views. It's the one that has, for the UK, the biggest thing is football, and it has the football rights. That's what's going to change when it comes to the slogans of game change. Does DAZN really want to make a splash in the UK? Then they've got to slash their prices, but also too, they've got to get the football rights, and they're frozen out of the football rights year after year. It's being protected and gatekept by Sky Sports and TNT, and they're not going to get into the picture. It's going to take a tremendous slip up, a tremendous change at the top for DAZN to ever get in the picture.
That's a huge licensing fee. I'm sure you're talking about Premier League.
That as well too. I don't think DAZN would have a problem with paying that license fee. I think they can find the funding for it. It's just whether they can get in the position of ever being able to bid for it. But this move from Frank Warren to DAZN it comes as no shock, and it should come as no shock to anyone who's clued into any sort of deals that happen with any sort of promotion looking to land or extend a network deal that they have. If you just take a look at how WWE or AEW have recently landed a TV deal, you usually get the whispers and the conversations. These sort of things get extended or start talked about. 18 months is a minimum, but a maximum where something's coming to a head as to how long you can leave it is 6 months. And 6 months prior to this, you were getting articles coming out about the potential of Queensberry going to DAZN. Nothing about any extension on TNT. Nothing about, and even there was a little bit of worry when TNT took over from BTS to whether they wanted boxing themselves and their kind of real dedication to the sport, and whether they wanted to push it onto their platforms. But you never got that. But when it comes to if you look at wrestling, those sort of articles and things, these conversations happen months and months beforehand when it comes to these negotiations. So when the only signs as to a conversation as to what was where Queensberry Promotions would land was talked or signaled about it being to DAZN, you can only see that being the case. And it was sort of fielded the same way from Frank Warner as it was by Eddie Hearn. You know, we're happy with a deal at TNT, we've got a contract and we're looking to see out a contract. Nothing about an extension, nothing about. So the signs and signals were there that a move to DAZN was pretty imminent, and that's come through now. So it should come to as no shock by anyone who's kind of followed the threads, I guess. What it means in the immediacy means, as we've been seeing right now, and hopefully you get the continuation of seeing more fights and easier to make fights because both Eddie and Frank are on the same platform, so the broadcaster can push more so for specific fights and push for fights which they feel that would get viewership. I believe DAZN actually have some sort of social media or social metric where they can gauge who the fight, and they use this in the Misfit scene where they can gauge who the fight people are they're following and what that would bring then to their following in terms of subscribership or viewership. So maybe they might employ that more if they haven't already used that in the traditional boxing circles. But I just wonder, I don't think it could be denied that in the UK, Sky Sports is the leading platform. The machine they have with all the channels, with the way that they can push on Sky Sports News, which runs like 24 hours, and segue into different sports, bring on different guests. It's a huge machine. It drives eyes and viewership for sport. And if you lose that, you can't buy ad space. Where can they buy the ad space on traditional TV? So you ain't going to get it from Sky. So I think short term and immediate worry as to the viewership to boxing as a whole in the UK.
Interesting stuff there. Thanks for that. Des, let me ask you: do you, just hypothetically, DAZN's grabbing up all these different promoters to working with them, and especially when it comes to what's happening in the UK. No offense to Ben Shalom, but I feel like he's not really the major promoter. I think it's kind of a 1-2, and then everyone's a bit below Matchroom and obviously Queensberry. But so if DAZN collapses while having all of these promoters working with them, could they potentially also collapse professional boxing in the UK along with it?
Well, that could happen if DAZN was to collapse. Where would Queensberry and Matchroom find their new home? But they'd find it somewhere. There's plenty of networks that would take them. I asked Ames this question last week, and I just wonder where boxing in this country is going. So, whenever you watch a show backed with Saudi money, it's like boxing dressed up in a tailor-made Savile Row suit with brand new shoes. It's all bells and whistles. When you watch a show without Saudi money, something like we saw last night or last week, it's like it's a suit off the peg and the shoes are a bit scuffed and it doesn't quite look as nice. It's worn, it's leathered. So I wonder how long before the likes of Eddie and Frank say, let's park up mundane routine domestic boxing. Let's just focus on getting out 8 times a year and putting on these huge cards that are stacked with Saudi money. And we'll leave the rest of boxing to everybody else. So maybe DAZN is going in that direction where they're only going to be focusing on the big ones. In that case, what's left for the rest of the promoters? And where does domestic boxing flourish? And where do our next generation of fighters come from? I'm sure they'll come from somewhere. I'm sure there'll be an avenue for them. I don't quite know what the move is, what the play is. Is DAZN going to focus on cards like we saw last night? It seems like an awful lot of investment to put on shows like that. I don't know. Question I would ask Ames is, do you think there's any possibility that Frank going over to DAZN could create a pathway for Eddie back into Sky? Or are they both going to operate on the same network?
I don't think so. I think they're very likely going to operate on the The same network. I've heard no whispers or rumors as to be the case. I think Eddie's pretty happy at DAZN as well too. So yeah, I don't see Eddie coming back to Sky anytime soon. It's more the whispers, more than obviously it's reached us guys as well. That the more likely thing, not more likely thing, but one of the possibilities is Sky completely pulls out of boxing, and that'll be a huge loss as well too. And this is sort of a big opportunity for Ben as well, like because now you've got the free run. Now you're not your mainstream broadcast competition was Frank Warren. Eddie had exited to DAZN. So your mainstream, and I think the DAZN channel has been pulled from Sky. I'm not quite sure, but either way, that wasn't pushed as much as it was when it was first heralded that they got a channel onto Sky that you could just type in the number to and flick over to. But that's not on there. Frank Warren's not on there. So this free run or free hit that Shalom has, if you can get the dates out and get fights on now, you can really kind of go without competition in the mainstream sense and really kind of show what he can do with a bit of a free hit.
Ames, is there any possibility that so two questions I want to ask you. So Frank exiting TNT, what's TNT's involvement going to be in boxing? Do you know?
Don't know for certain, only just the possibility that TNT might still broadcast the big fights, like the Riyadh season fights, like hold kind of broadcasting rights for that that they do and share between all three of them. And Sky might even do the same thing. If TNT have decided that, big conglomerate like TNT have decided that, there's the worry there for you. Sky might continue in boxing. They might say, hey, I'm not pulling out, but realistically, weekly or monthly boxing, they might be exiting that, but the big shows they might still do. So they've still got a commitment to boxing, but without the outlay, because it's a lot cheaper to run a model like that when you've got that broadcast feed, as opposed to kind of paying for those fights. So
well, I presume all you've got to do is find a production cost. Is that right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So my second question is: so let's just assume that DAZN heads to the big shows backed by Saudi money, and let's assume that TNT and Sky, they just hop in and hop out when the big shows come along and suffer the production costs. Where does small hall boxing go, and where does medium hall boxing go?
DAZN. It's been picked up, hasn't it? I think GBM.
They'll play a lot of shit simultaneously, and they don't care. They'll have like 3 cards going on from different places all at once, and just pick what you want, watch the next day, whatever. And I think that's probably the way to do it. Just throw content on there. I'm fine with that.
Okay, so will they have sort of a host of promoters subcontracting out to them, Ames? Will they have guys like Nick Hennessy or Dennis Hobson or who's the other chap that operates in London? Steve Goodwin. Will they have their shows on their channel, or will it be exclusive to Queensbury and Matchroom fighters?
I'm not sure, to be honest with you. As far as I know, it's GBM are on DAZN, Eddie, Frank. And I don't think those guys are on DAZN as of yet. I've not heard anything about any of the formats being picked up at all as of yet. I think those kind of end up staying on. The small hall scene ends up staying on either if a YouTube outlet picks it up or they go on to Fight TV. No real word as to the health of them off the back of Queensbury getting picked up by DAZN.
All right.
Is that your worry, Des?
Yeah, I mean, my worry is that we ring fence Matchroom and Queensbury prospects, and then what about the rest of boxing? That's my concern. Where do they go? Where do them fighters go then? Because we might end up having a split where there are a group of fighters that have dates on DAZN, and the rest of the fighters have got to go and sell tickets and operate off TV. And we know that getting out of that is very, very difficult for fighters. Very few fighters can do what Josh Warrington did. Very few. And we'll see a lot of drop-off. And we might have in British boxing something similar to what we have in American heavyweight boxing, where the talent just stops.
Yeah. Big concern. I think
you end up with Jared Anderson.
the next step is to see what Sky's play is, because if they continue in boxing, maybe it's not. I don't know anything here, but maybe it's not exclusively. Maybe they look to kind of deal with many promoters and try and pick as much as good fights off of a small hall cards and move that into alongside a boxer offering here. But the main important thing is that they do continue in boxing.
Excellent. That was a good conversation. And Rob, I'm sure you're going to be continuing your subscription with the Zone following this news.
Well, I know you expected some kind of sarcastic response there, but I actually have
I am.
I have a DAZN subscription. I was away. I was away the night of the Beater Beef and Beevall fight. So in order to watch Batabi and Bibble, I had to get a DAZN subscription in the hotel I was at, and I haven't cancelled it. So current DAZN subscription holder. Good news for me. I'll still be able to see all the Queensberry shows, won't I? It's funny, you're making a point about like we all had questions and concerns about the future of boxing once HBO were getting out of it, and the PBC ultimately failed, and it's just been splintering off, and kind of Turkey Al-Sheikh is breathed a new life into boxing in terms of matchmaking, but it's very much on their terms and conditions are on their say so because they're paying the big bucks. But we all kind of had anticipated the future of boxing will be streaming. I don't think many of us predicted that the future of boxing would actually be piracy. Yeah, the Fire Stick's got to be fucking everything up. Like even Crawford and Spence mentioned it in their negotiations. Like I think Crawford basically said something like, "Take the fucking guarantee. Everybody's going to be watching it on the Fire Stick anyway. No one's going to pay for the fucking thing." So I don't know where that leaves boxing. I think we can only look to, I think when the kind of subscription figures are down across the board and the revenue seems to be down across the board, and it's not as easy to make money, you got to look for big stars, and the only way you're going to find them is with matching them up against each other. So maybe the future of boxing lies in a UFC style tournament based format owned wholly by Turkey Al-Sheikh. That's my prediction.
Yeah, and there is some news that the Saudis are pulling back on some of their sporting ventures. So I don't know. This could end up pretty bad. We'll see what happens.
Mate, I don't think going on an app is particularly a bad route or a bad thing. Like if I like to look at one of the pioneers in these sort of strategic decision making, and WWE, like over the last 5, 6, 7 years, have sort of bounced back between platforms and traditional TV. What did they do? They launched their own WWE network, so their own sort of Netflix thing where you could get their own content. Now the idea of boxing doing that, and one of the promoters doing that, I think was a bit too much to take on at the time there. But WWE did that. They then bounced off of that idea and then moved to, I think, Peacock, where then Peacock held all of the WWE network, and I think they also were still on traditional TV as well too. I think.
Yeah, they're still on USA and I forget what Friday Night SmackDown's on, but yeah, they're on a couple channels still.
But they sold those rights, and they sold the rights, banded the rights deal to the broadcasting promotion for lots and lots of money. But eventually, they've ended up on Netflix, haven't they?
Yeah, and everything after this, either this WrestleMania is the first one that's going to be on Netflix, or everything after WrestleMania is going to officially be on Netflix. I can't remember which it is.
And that's huge. And boxing is going to be on Netflix as well. I think they're sort of playing the field with big time boxing and trying to see what sort of interaction. It's going to be absolutely huge. The Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul. I think it's going to be, in terms of figures across the board, the biggest event of the year, unfortunately. But Netflix might have a foray, and eventually maybe Netflix might turn into a big player. But these sort of kind of Netflix, Amazons, they all seem to be getting into the content business. And I think app-based programming clearly is the future. So moving off of broadcast does seem to be the way that these promotions are going, but DAZN right now they've just not got a grasp enough of the market right now, and to get that grasp is going to take a lot of funding and a lot of strategy above from the boards to get them into that position, and that's going to take a long time.
Yeah, I do appreciate though that Netflix is getting into the game and not doing their first fight on pay-per-view. If you're a Netflix subscriber, you can watch the Jake Paul Mike Tyson card.
But it's that as well too. Like,
yeah,
DAZN. Like right now, for me anyway, me personally as a consumer, forget me being in the business, but as a consumer, I made the decision to cancel my DAZN subscription and then decide and plump for Netflix. And the value that you're getting, the free plug here, is unbelievable. If you offer people proper value, they will come to you. If you get them in the door and then don't offer them the content or the value, then they'll leave. It's pretty simple. And I remember I had a conversation. I was on a night out in Nottingham, and I bumped into a couple of Australian lads, no, New Zealand lads, and they were just on a gap year and traveling around the world. And we got talking about jobs and things, and they're interested in. They said they're into combat sports and UFC and stuff, and they said, "Oh, you know what? I really liked the that 5 versus 5 concept. It really got me interested." I was like, "Oh, really? Like, how come? In what way?" It was like, "Oh, we like the dynamic of the two promoters kind of going at it and the story there, and overall like the fights as well too. The fights were well matched and they were entertaining fights. Is real good." I was like, "Oh, that's great." So you dug the concept, you dug the fights. Then I said to them, "But did you pay for it?" And they said, "No." I said, "So how did you watch it?" He goes, "We watched it by ways other than paying for it." And I thought that's the biggest thing. Overall, that's the biggest thing. Whether you're on a platform, on Netflix or whatever it is, DAZN or Sky Sports, the biggest problem that they've got to tackle, and Netflix have apparently, and you keep hearing these signals. And remember Dana White at that press conference where he was asked about piracy, he was like, "We've got him, we've got that guy." Like it was one guy in his basement that was controlling all of online piracy. You've got to shut that down. And apparently Netflix are trying to. We'll see what Netflix can do with their software and their engineering, if they can really put a stamp down on that piracy, because that's the biggest thing for all these platforms, because it's been taken away for free, and you can't beat for free, unfortunately.
Well, and Netflix has to have 20, 30, 40 times the subscribers that DAZN has too. Like there's going to be less people to pirate it because more people can just go on their Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think that's going to be an improvement, and it's just, and I think that's better. Boxing just being part of the normal entertainment, package is what is best, and that's what kind of this Netflix deal is pointing at, and that's what I prefer. If all this Amazon crap wasn't pay-per-view, that would be a big W too. It was good that Zoo card was off it, and there seems to be pushback against Lamont Roach and Gervonta Davis fighting each other on pay-per-view. So we'll see how that ends up. But the boxing public has had enough, and again, I think for us to survive, we kind of have to get reabsorbed into like just the normal cultural.
As there should be for the Davis. Is it Davis versus Roach? Is that the fight?
Yeah, that's what they're trying to make.
Well, that fucking absolutely should be pushed back. For Davis could say he's the face of boxing all he wants, but he fucking has to fight live bodies. Like that's fucking unacceptable for a guy
He
that
is
can
a
fight that.
130-pound champion, but he's a 130-pound champion when we know that Davis could knock out 140-pounders no issue.
It's a fucking joke. That's a joke. I'm a big Tank fan, but that's not the one. Like.
I hope you're happy, Gervonta. You made Rob sad. I hope you're happy. So, but anyway, that was a good conversation there. So I do appreciate everyone for partaking in that one. And we're almost up to the 3-hour mark. Been a while since we did that, but I appreciate everybody for being in the part of the podcast today. Justin, Rob Kelly, Ames, and Dez. it was a really good time in here today. We covered a lot of ground. We'll be back to kind of go over these cards that maybe there's some fights on there. They'll be entertaining, maybe not. But we have a lot of stuff to discuss as far as next week. So we'll see you guys same time, same place next week. And make sure you check out our Patreon. Steve Wellings is recording some things in there that you can only exclusively get through that Boxing Asylum Patreon, which is patreon.com/Boxing Asylum. Simple enough. So if you want to check that out or get in on the other action, join up with the Boxing Nutters group. That's how you get in there. So, Desiree, you want to say something?
I just want to shout out all the guys and Holly that are in the WhatsApp group. They're a great bunch, and it's so topical, and there's so much going on. And if you ever need to know something, they're a great source to fall back on. So I want to shout out all the guys and Holly that are in the WhatsApp group.
Yeah, they're good folks. Yeah, and Holly is an especially wonderful person who tolerates so very much from all of us terrible people in there. So, but yeah, God love all those people in there. And so yeah, we'll be coming back to you guys next week to discuss all of this. And I know we only have Justin and probably 50 other Americans who typically listen to this show, but we got a crazy day coming up. And regardless of the outcome, please treat each other decently. Don't do anything stupid. Don't do anything crazy just because it didn't go your way. You can do things yourself. You can leave countries. You can close down your business. You can refuse to participate in X, Y, and Z to show your disgust with how something might have turned out. But don't go crazy. Don't go treating your fellow citizens terribly. Don't go getting violent. Don't go spreading conspiracies. Play it down the middle, folks. We can go mad now, buddy. Yeah, well, we can be better than this. And believe me, there's a lot more that I could say, but all I want us to do, guys, is maybe, hopefully, get back to something that we used to be, because the way we're treating each other isn't going to work. So my fellow Americans, choose how you want to choose on Tuesday, but beyond that, we don't choose how we treat people. We treat people with respect and dignity. Okay. But I would like to thank everybody for coming
We are
on
the world
today.
shit, Matty. Just fucking wrap it up with it. Fuck me.
Matty, when he said my fellow American, sounded like who used LimeWire here back in the day, and you then ended up downloading that, my fellow Americans.
But anyways, I'd like to thank Connor Mateer and Mr. Captain Casual Damo himself for kicking in some super chats. But you folks have a fantastic week ahead, and we'll be here next week on Sunday, same time, same place, with the Boxing Asylum Nuthouse. Take care, folks. Bye-bye.
We'll never forget.
I think that's good happening.
Go to animals! We want to be honest, yeah?
Crying like a little bitch. I've never met a fucking swank that can fight me.
I fell asleep. I fell asleep.
You're a fucking bum, you're a fucking asshole.
Rumple fucking Stiltskin.
But allegedly, Oscar Rivas has failed a test.
7 year ain't it? 7 year ain't it? I won't fucking smash fucking you.
I hope you fucking die.
Be safe.
I love Boxing Asylum. It's as simple as that.